Chapter 892. The masked figure floated in her mind, and she had a strong premonition that it was definitely the mysterious iron-masked man who gave the order. Although they had met once, but she had a deep impression of the cold and emotionless man, and no threats were able to sway his determination. Seeing this scene, she suddenly felt a trace of relief. Just like today, he had used a trading ship to block the entrance of the harbor. It was extremely ingenious. So what if you have a gold-grade warship? I can use an ordinary trading ship to make Macefield trading suffer in silence. In the world of prestigious families, a gold-grade warship was too insignificant. A single trading ship of the Chiu family was enough to block a gold-grade warship. That was the weight of the Chiu family. The red tea was like blood, and Chiu Yunqi, who was seated opposite her, could not dodge in time, and was instantly drenched. But although Wiley was cautious, he was not too worried, thinking that Elizabeth Tradings was not satisfied. Macefield Tradings. Countless of broken wood flew. The workers on the trading ship all jumped off the ship and ran for their lives. The scene was extremely chaotic. He clenched his fists tightly, his entire body trembling, his eyes spewing fire. Under the umbrella, it was quiet. Everyone was completely shocked by the sudden turn of events, and when they saw Chiu Yunqi's ashen face, no one dared to speak. Claudia's gaze did not leave the harbor. She had received the strongest impact, and had not regained her senses. She only had one thought in her mind. With that, without waiting for Wiley to speak, she swaggered off. On a high slope, under an umbrella, a group of people were leisurely drinking tea and eating snacks. All of them were dressed in brocade robes. It was obvious that they were not ordinary people. When Wiley rushed to the harbor, he immediately found the matchless ship. Macefield Tradings and Elizabeth Tradings were mortal enemies, and were naturally familiar with their respective gold-grade warships. Furthermore, the matchless ship was too conspicuous. It had forcefully crushed a trading ship, and none of the surrounding ships dared to approach it. Wiley and White did not have a deep relationship, but they had met a few times. Seeing the other party walk over, Wiley went up to greet him. "I never expected to meet President White here. It truly is fate." Just at this moment, a floating fragment flew in front of Willie. On it was a large autumn character. Willie looked like he was struck by lightning and was dumbfounded. Come, have a taste of this year's new tea, the Han family's newly planted dragon blood kasha. Everyone, please have a taste." Chiu Yunqi passionately called out to everyone. He did not take the conflict at the port to heart. For him, spending a pleasant afternoon was more important than anything else. Good tea and beautiful women were his hobbies. The collar covered the bruise on her neck. Everyone was shocked by Claudia's loss of composure, and there was an awkward silence under the parasol. Everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Warder stared at Willie for a long time without saying anything. His expression was a little strange. That was a madman. A real lunatic. Only a real madman could have done such an absurd and contemptuous thing. Fortunately, he was still alive. While he rejoiced, he also felt some lingering fear. If he had hesitated at that time, he would definitely be a corpse now. She did not doubt that the person who dared to destroy the Chiu family's trading ship would definitely not put the Elizabeth family in his eyes. But Claudia did not even look at him. Her eyes were fixated on the distant port. She did not move an inch, as though she was a statue. The man who was addressed as Brother Chiu was handsome and had an extraordinary bearing. He laughed. "I can only give him a little trouble, and cause him some trouble, but I do not have any substantial use." Everyone raised their cups. "Please." The haze in Chiu Yunqi's eyes became even heavier. He reminded indifferently, "Miss Claudia?" A haze flashed past Chiu Yunqi's eyes. The smile on his face disappeared. He had a slight obsession with cleanliness, and the current situation made him extremely unhappy. He forcefully suppressed the rage in his heart and looked at Claudia, wanting to hear what Claudia had to say. "I must definitely leave a good impression in front of Chiu Yunqi." Claudia reminded herself in her heart, her actions becoming even more elegant. Suddenly, her gaze landed on the distant port, and her alluring eyes suddenly opened wide, completely forgetting that she was drinking tea. A few of her acquaintances did the same thing. All of them had weird expressions. Qiu Yunqi was unhappy in his heart and looked towards the direction that Claudia was pointing at, but in the next moment, his pupils suddenly dilated, he stood up, and because his movements were too big, he flipped his chair. He had never lost his composure like that before. But Claudia knew that the rumors of Qiu Yunqi being one of her suitors were mostly rumors. Qiu Yunqi did admire her, but he was not at the level of a suitor. Furthermore, for an outstanding man like Qiu Yunqi, how could he lack suitors? What a fragrant tea! Claudia was surprised. The tea in the cup was as red as blood, and the fragrance assailed her nose. Claudia threw a flirtatious look at Qiu Yunqi, then drank the tea in the cup. Out of all her suitors, Qiu Yunqi was the one she liked the most. He was handsome, had a good family background, and was capable. He was not someone that the other hedonistic young masters could compare to. Furthermore, at such a crucial time, to be able to marry into the Qiu family, to the Elizabeth family, it meant that they were hugging onto a thick thigh. Just at that moment, a fat man dressed in purple robes walked over. Wiley recognized him. He was the president of Nanqi Trading, white, and was a rather famous person in Snow City. Nanqi Trading's overall strength was not considered strong, but it was a local tyrant, and was a local trading company of the Saint Continent, and had considerable power. In the passageway of the harbor, the Qiu family's merchant ship was already flipped upside down, looking like a dead fish with its belly flipped upside down. As for the matchless ship that should have been stuck outside, it was currently being crushed underneath the merchant ship. Even though they were far away, everyone could hear the sound of teeth aching. The sturdy bottom of the ship did not even have the strength to retaliate against the matchless ship. It was as weak as a biscuit. When had the Qiu family ever been provoked like that? Since when did any warship dare to crush the Qiu family's trading ship? It took quite a bit of effort. Qiu Yunqi laughed, hearing the exclamations from the beauties. He could not help but feel pleased in his heart. He raised his teacup and greeted everyone. Everyone, please. He snorted in his heart. What a clown. Do they think they can rely on such underhanded methods to regain their face? Looking at the broken pieces of wood and the miserable expressions of the crew members, he felt great, but he maintained a calm and collected look on his face. The matchless ship was docked at the shore, and Wiley immediately ordered his subordinates to welcome them. Although he liked Claudia, but he was not a playboy who only knew how to eat, drink and play, and in such a crucial period he had to avoid trouble. He naturally did not place Macefield Tradings in his eyes, and since Claudia had begged him, he could not reject her, but he was not foolish enough to clash head-on with them. Wiley was confused. He did not understand what was going on, but from the corner of his eyes he saw a middle-aged man with a pale face walk over. He had a majestic gait and imposing aura. Snow City Lord. Wiley quivered. He immediately went forward, but before he could greet him, the City Lord spoke out. Macefield Tradings, you have guts. How dare Macefield Tradings? Qiu Yunqi also had the intention to take the opportunity to beat them down. The war had just begun, and it was a crucial battle that would decide the fate of the family for the next 1,000 years. All of the Qiu family's allies, which one of them did not have their own plans? Even the Elizabeth family was not as obedient. Everyone was startled, and looked towards the direction that Claudia was pointing at. Suddenly, everyone's expressions froze. They were dumbstruck. A few of them had their mouths opened wide enough to fit duck eggs. The blood on his face had drained away, and he was as white as a sheet. Not far from the port, there was a tall slope, and as the terrain was vast, the scenery was beautiful. In the distance, there were many warship masts, and it had a unique style, thus many tea houses and small shops were built there. The colorful umbrellas on the snow-white slope were extremely beautiful, and became one of Snow City's unique sceneries. Many of the local nobles liked to come here to rest when they had nothing to do, drink tea, taste snacks, and spend the afternoon leisurely. Wiley felt that his mind was in a daze. What is going on? With that, he did not wait for Wiley to speak and turned to leave. How dare he? The Qiu family's ship, even if it was just a small sampan, who would dare to say anything when it blocked the passage? It was dead silence. Qiu Yunqi had completely forgotten that his face was splashed with tea. The fresh red tea flowed down his face, like fresh blood from a knife, causing his handsome face to look extremely sinister. She was from a prestigious family and lived extravagantly. She naturally knew what was good and bad, and knew that the dragon blood kasha in front of her was definitely worth 1,000 gold. The matchless ship did not have any mercy. It brought up a sky full of broken wood and rushed into the port passage. He looked at Claudia with a gaze filled with admiration. Claudia was not the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, but in terms of beauty, no one could compare to her, and she was extremely alluring. He truly could not understand how any man in the world would be willing to lay his hands on such a beautiful woman. Wiley did not understand. He lowered his head to look at his own clothes. There is nothing wrong with what I'm wearing. Brother Chiu is truly brilliant. Claudia's eyes were like silk. Her voice was extremely sweet, causing one's heart to palpitate. She was dressed in a white dress and was extremely beautiful. Her slender white neck was adorned with a dazzling diamond necklace, causing her to look even more noble and graceful. Claudia suddenly raised her hand and pointed to the port. She stammered, that place. He who was born from a top-notch prestigious family knew that fighting and showing off was just a lowly method in the upper-class society. Wiley was an astute person. Upon seeing the scene in front of him, he knew that someone was intentionally causing trouble, but the trading ship had already been smashed into many pieces, and he could not see the insignia of the other party. White walked up and patted Wiley's shoulder. Macefield Tradings, you have guts. All right, I will let them see how important the two words, Chiu family is. The pitiful trading ship was wailing under the matchless ship. White had just left when another president of an organization walked over and patted Wiley's shoulder. He said, Macefield Tradings, you have guts, and turned to leave. Chapter 893. Wiley was also jealous that the Elizabeth family had the backing of the Chiu family. The reason why the Elizabeth family was able to suppress Macefield Tradings was because they had the backing of the Chiu family. But it was not easy to find a backing. Macefield Tradings was already a prestigious family, and if they were to look for a backing, they could only look for the top-notch families, like the Chiu family. As for the families that were weaker than the Chiu family, although they were stronger than Macefield Tradings, there was a limit to how much they could help Macefield Tradings. Inside the study, Wiley's exclamation was filled with despair. That's right, he was in despair. The Chiu family, they are the Chiu family that has Chiu Su Hua, the Chiu family that can crush them with a single finger. Wiley could not understand why they had to provoke the Chiu family, just because they were blocking the boat? Just because they were helping Elizabeth Tradings? Melissa had a living example by her side. If Tang Tian were to be messed with, would he wait for revenge? Stop joking. As for Temple's prestigious families, they are disdainful. Along the way, Melissa had reminded Tang Tian that the Chiu family would definitely retaliate, and she remembered the sneer that Tang Tian had squeezed out from behind his mask. Wiley did not know, but half of the influential figures in Snow City were secretly watching the fight. Many of the more intelligent people had seen the scene at the port and guessed that the Chiu family would quickly retaliate. But she had gradually digested her fear. That's right, she finally understood that the fear was hers. Tang Tian did not place the Chiu family in his eyes at all. All right, thinking about it, Chiu Su Hua was beaten up like a dog by Tang Tian's subordinates, and she still hoped that Tang Tian would be afraid of the Chiu family. She was too naive. He asked the most realistic and direct question. Then what do we do if the Chiu family comes looking for trouble? Then we have to calculate. We cannot apologize to the Chiu family. Melissa's tone was resolute. But the one who ordered the collision was Tang Tian. Upon thinking about that, she felt a headache. She still remembered the panic and fear she felt when Tang Tian ordered for the ships to collide. She was completely stunned. She had clearly told them about the Chiu family's background and strength, but it was useless. Thus, Melissa's face was filled with fear as she watched as the matchless ship destroyed the Chiu family's trading ship. Melissa was clear that Tang Tian was not a magnanimous person. On the contrary, it was his style to seek revenge for the smallest grievance. When Willie heard this, his face turned pale. In the end, Tang Tian was blocked for 2 hours. Now that the debt was cleared, what about the other 2 hours? Furthermore, the Chiu family had publicly announced that Macefield Tradings was the Chiu family's mortal enemy, which meant that no one dared to ally with Macefield Tradings. At such a critical moment, he had no allies and could only fight alone. His situation immediately became extremely dangerous. Who knew how many people were waiting to hit him when he was down? Suddenly, she pitied the Qiu family. Initially, he thought that the other party was a plump lamb that he could easily slaughter. Drooling, he pounced forward, only to realize that he was pouncing on a lion. Of course, the Tang Tian clan was stronger than the Qiu clan, much stronger. When Willie heard the screams, his face changed, his heart jumped, and his footsteps quickened. On the contrary, Melissa was extremely calm. She was unhurried and unruffled. Qiu family. We actually flipped the Qiu family ship. Oh my God, are we crazy? Melissa looked at Willie helplessly, truly a jinx. His face was filled with arrogance. He did not even look at Willie, and spoke coldly to the bodyguards who had crawled up. Let's go. It's not that we want to clash with the Qiu family. Melissa knew that there were some things that she could not hide from Willie. Without his support, their operation in the Saint Continent would truly be in the dark. She looked straight at Willie. The Qiu family is Elizabeth's backing, then who is ours? Willie immediately became anxious. Could it be that my niece has started to become arrogant just because she has some achievements? He spoke sternly. Melissa, why? Could it be that you think that our Macefield Trading's family can contend against the Qiu family? It's not just your Qiu family that hates us. Do you think that this hatred will be resolved? Too naive. In truth, on the way to the branch, she had already guessed that the Qiu family would retaliate, but she never expected them to be so fast. They had just stepped into the branch, and they had already attacked. But after thinking about it, it was normal. In the eyes of the Qiu family, Macefield Trading's family was just a small shrimp, and now that the small shrimp actually dared to provoke them, how could they not teach them a lesson? If it was a prestigious family of the same level, they would have to consider if it would incite an all-out war between the two families. As for the small shrimp, they did not have much to consider. The Qiu family only had to consider how to punish the chicken to warn the monkey, and how to let the arrogant Macefield Trading's family know why flowers are red. Willie decided if Melissa truly thought that the Macefield Trading's family could contend against the Qiu family, he would definitely stop Melissa from becoming the patriarch. Willie became excited. He finally understood that Melissa had not lost her rationality, but had something to rely on. He asked with anticipation, "Which family is it?" "Don't worry." Melissa consoled Willie. She walked out calmly with a sneer in her heart. The current Macefield Trading's family was led by Tang Tian, and the entire Macefield Trading's family had to serve Tang Tian. Of course not. Melissa shook her head with certainty. In the eyes of others, the Qiu family's trading ship was the one that was knocked over, the Qiu family was the one that suffered, and the Qiu family was the one holding back their anger. But Melissa knew that Master Tang Tian's anger had not been completely vented. Although she had not followed Tang Tian for long, but she was extremely clear of Tang Tian's temper. If you dare to block, I will dare to knock. If Tang Tian knew that the other party had ill intentions from the start, he would definitely knock the ship over without saying a word. Melissa was not angry. She could understand Willie's panic. Comparing the Macefield Trading's family to the Qiu family, it was like comparing an ant to an elephant. Thus, she could understand Willie's emotions. Qiu Yong looked at Willie and sneered, "Willie, this matter is not over. I will say it here. From today onwards, the Qiu family and Macefield Trading's family will be mortal enemies. Anyone who forms an alliance with Macefield Trading's family will be the Qiu family's enemy." Good. Good Macefield Trading's. Not only did you dare to knock our Qiu family ship, you actually dared to injure our people. Good, truly good. I cannot say. Melissa shook her head, then added, "This was grandfather's decision." "Who is our backer?" Willie was startled, but he quickly reacted. His eyes opened wide, his face filled with shock and excitement. Could it be that we have found a backer? Mortal enemies, that was a situation where they would fight to the death, although the Qiu family was unable to directly take action against Macefield Trading's due to the Holy Bells ban, but in the future. Willie recognized the middle-aged man. He was the Qiu family shopkeeper in Snow City, Qiu Yong. Willie had interacted with Qiu Yong a few times, and Qiu Yong had always been all smiles, but at the moment, His face was filled with ferocity, and a few good s caused Willie's heart to jump. At that moment, all of the big figures revealed looks of pity. The influence of the top-grade prestigious families in the honorable martial continent was extremely terrifying, and their robust strength was not something that outsiders could see. No one felt that the Chiu family was bluffing, as the Chiu family was only afraid of Temple. But you want Tang Tian to tuck his tail between his legs? He had truly lost his face this time. He had come to Macefield Tradings to denounce them, but never thought that the other party would take action without saying a word. They were even more arrogant than the Chiu family. Did I say that you can leave? Yes. Melissa was extremely confident. We are definitely stronger than the Chiu family. That is the Chiu family. When Melissa and Willie rushed to the entrance of the trading organization, they saw the wailing scene and were startled. With that said, a staff member stumbled in with a look of panic. Not good. Not good. There's a group of people blocking our entrance. Regardless of anything, with the Chiu family's words, they knew that Macefield Tradings was finished. Willie heaved a sigh of relief, but was still suspicious. Then why are we fighting with the Chiu family? All right, Melissa is not angry or panicking at all. She started to understand the disparity between the two parties. Tang Tian was a true strong martial artist. Regardless of whether it was his individual strength or authority, he stood at the peak of the sacred Saint Galaxy. Such a ferocious man, to say that he had the mentality of a true strong martial artist. The reason why Tang Tian did not make a move when he opened the door was because he thought that the other party had truly malfunctioned. From this point, it could be seen that Tang Tian was extremely polite, and was not someone who relied on his strength to act recklessly. As for the Macefield Tradings family, although they were hailed as a prestigious family, but in the circle of prestigious families, they were at the bottom and were naturally used to tuck their tails between their legs. With that, he turned and left. Suddenly, a cold snort came out from behind them. When the people who were watching the commotion heard that, they all quietened down. All of Willie's joy disappeared, and he spoke slowly. Melissa, although our recent situation is much better than before, but we cannot afford to offend the Chiu family. Tomorrow, I will accompany you to the Chiu family's branch here. I heard that young noble Chiu is in Snow City. We need to properly apologize to them and make amends. Chiu Yong saw the expressions of the people around them. Does Macefield Tradings mean that the Holy Bells ban will cause the Chiu family to have misgivings? But the bunch of country bumpkins will never think that the Chiu family only needed one sentence to destroy Macefield Tradings. As expected, the moment she walked out of the study, she heard a few screams. Most likely, Tang Tian only had one enemy in his eyes, and that was Temple. But for a top-notch prestigious family like the Chiu family, they were equally picky, and ordinary benefits would not attract them. Without anything that moved them, it would be difficult to move them. As expected, Willie, who was initially unhappy, upon hearing that it was the old master's decision, he immediately had no objections. In Macefield Tradings, the old master held supreme authority. Since it was the old master's decision, Willie relaxed. As for the reason why he could not speak of it, he did not ask further. Chapter 894. No one would have thought that Chiu Yunqi would be in the crowd, but his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Where was his usual elegance? He clenched his fists so tightly that they turned white. He was trembling in anger. He never expected Macefield Tradings to speak in such a manner. The other party's ferocity made him realize that he had fallen into a terrible situation. He could not help but feel a trace of regret. You must be mistaken. Those words should be said by the Chiu family to Macefield Tradings. What's wrong with the world? Ji Zhe was not afraid. On the contrary, he was extremely disappointed. I have already scolded them. Why aren't they taking action? What happened to the top-notch prestigious families? The surrounding spectators were in an uproar. I feel that I have something to do. Claudia stammered. Claudia knew that Chiu Yunqi was referring to the date of the counterattack. She hesitated for a moment, then braced herself and asked, I wonder who is coming? A few of the smarter ones saw Macefield Tradings family's abnormal actions and started to ponder. For Macefield Tradings family to be so abnormal, they definitely had something to rely on. But what could they rely on to fight against the Chiu family? No one dared to speak, regardless of whether they were overestimating themselves or if they had something to rely on. No one was willing to provoke the Chiu family to speak such ruthless words. To be so rude to the Chiu family, is there a family stronger than the Chiu family in Snow City? None. In 2 days, Macefield Tradings will be in ruins. Ji did not care about what others thought, and spoke coldly. Do you think Macefield Tradings is a market that you can come and go as you please? I never expected them to not only provoke them, but to provoke them to such an extent. Before the reinforcements arrive, saying anything now would only be asking for humiliation. Chiu Yong also understood this point. It was too rash of him to come over to interrogate them. If he said anything unnecessary, it would only make him a laughingstock. He did not leave and sneered, "You're not letting me leave? But if you want to lock me up, use whatever methods you have. I want to see how you're going to send me off." 2 days will come back in 2 days. Many people looked as though they had seen a ghost. Is Macefield Tradings family crazy? This was definitely a case of spasms. Now, they wanted to force the Chiu family to stay. What was wrong with this world? Chiu Yong was about to cry. Many of them revealed looks of schadenfreude. Macefield Tradings is a lunatic. Of all the people that the Chiu family could have offended, they had to provoke a group of lunatics. This is interesting. He didn't expect to bump into such a hard nail. He also knew that he had lost a lot of face today. Today would become the biggest stain in his life. When he came, he never expected that Macefield Tradings would be so unyielding. He had dealt with Willie before. Willie was shrewd, capable, and good at making money, but he was too calculative and cautious. The Chiu family's stronghold in Snow City was not big, and they did not have many people. The reason why Chiu Yong dared to come over was because of the Chiu family's domineering style, and also because they looked down on the Macefield Tradings family. Ji was just fretting about not being able to find the other party, but the other party actually came knocking on his door. How could Ji not be happy? Hearing how arrogant the Chiu family was, Ji was overjoyed. The fiercer they were and the more intense their attitude was, the more intense the conflict would be. Ji couldn't wait for the conflict to become more intense. That way, he would have the opportunity to strike ruthlessly. It doesn't matter if I can't kill them. Ji is not a good person. In the past, when he roamed the Sin domain alone, he was also mixed with the vicious people. He had countless of ways to not kill the other party, but to make them suffer so much that they wish they were dead. A look of respect surfaced on Chiu Yunqi's face, but in the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of fear, a deep fear. He did not realize that his voice was trembling. My big brother and his personal guards. Chiu Yong calmed down. If he still could not see that the other party was fearless, then he would truly be a fool. He asked, "What do you mean?" And such fierce, arrogant, and naked words were directed at the Chiu family. Seeing the other party running over aggressively, with a look of condemnation, Ji was so excited that all of the hairs on his body stood up. Upon thinking about how he and his men were stuck at the port like fools for over 2 hours, Ji's heart was filled with rage. If he was alone, he would have just run to the Chiu family and kill a few more people. But upon thinking about how his boss had suffered such humiliation, Ji blamed himself and felt ashamed, and the evil fire in his heart could not be extinguished. "What do you mean?" Ji scoffed, his tone of voice causing people to feel a chill down their spines. "What I mean is, stay here obediently, and wait for your Chiu family to save you. It's best if you resist, that way I will have a reason to injure or cripple you, or maybe we can fight. My blade is already thirsting for blood." Chiu Yong was enraged. He pointed at Ji's face, looking as though he was about to pounce on him. Chiu Yunqi said indifferently, no one could tell if he was happy or angry. Everyone was shocked by Ji's blatant words. Even the city lord of Snow City, who was hiding in the crowd, had his mouth wide open, a look of shock on his face. The circle of the prestigious families was the true upper-class circle of the honorable martial continent, and in the upper-class society, etiquette had become their instinct. No matter how angry they were, they would definitely not speak such naked words in front of the other party, filled with killing intent. Many of the surrounding people nodded their heads. Chiu Yong had kicked the ball to the other party, making things difficult for Macefield Tradings. But everyone knew that Macefield Tradings had truly formed an irreconcilable enmity with the Chiu family, and both parties would not rest until they were dead. The Chiu family's counterattack would definitely be as powerful as a thunderbolt. If the Chiu family could not quickly settle Macefield Tradings, the Chiu family would become the laughingstock of the entire upper-class society, and their reputation would fall to the bottom of history. This time, Claudia felt afraid. She was the instigator of the entire matter. If the Chiu family truly suffered losses because of the matter, then she, or the Elizabeth family, would naturally not have a good time. But what happened next caused Jizai's eyes to pop out. Everyone's faces turned ashen. He had spoken a few harsh words and was prepared to go back first, but he did not expect the other party to be so persistent, causing his face to turn green. What? Don't tell me you want me to stay? The entire place was dead silent, no one made an uproar, everyone was stunned by Jizai's powerful words. We just took care of a few guards, and you actually want to retreat? Come on, big brother, you ran so far and scolded us for so long, could it be just to take a beating and speak a few harsh words? You guys are the Chiu family, a first-rate prestigious family. Where is your prestige? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Don't throw away the face of a first-rate prestigious family. There are so many people watching. Quickly bring out your Chiu family's pride. Quickly take care of us. Hey, don't go. Chiu Yunqi calmed down. Regardless of whether it was him or the Chiu family, they had no other choice. Other than flattening Macefield Tradings, there was no other way. Ever since he had decided to be loyal to Tang Tian, Jizai's goal in life was to become Tang Tian's left and right arm, a loyal guard, or at the very least, to be Tang Tian's #1 fighter. Jizai, who harbored a grand ideal, followed Tang Tian, but who knew that upon reaching the Saint Continent, the master would be made difficult by a group of worms. All the spectators were speechless. They actually dared to tie us up. Macefield Tradings is truly ferocious. Chiu Yunqi took a few deep breaths and forced himself to calm down. He knew that it was useless to be impulsive at such a time, and he was extremely passive. Macefield Tradings did not fall for threats, thus both parties could only rely on their fists to speak. He waved his hand disinterestedly, and the other members who were watching by the side rushed forward and tied up Chiu Yong and his group tightly. Claudia's pupils constricted. Deep inside her eyes, it was filled with fear, as though she had heard some terrifying news. It was not only her, all the other playboys' faces were filled with fear. A few of the more courageous ones were trembling uncontrollably. Absolute silence. What about you? Jizai sneered, running so far to block our path, and clamoring at our door. Do you think we are dead? Don't embarrass us. I am waiting to see what other methods your Chiu family has. And don't think you can just run away after saying a few words. Since you are the sworn enemy of our Macefield Tradings, then let me show you what it means to be sworn enemy. Your sworn enemy came to our door to cause trouble, and you think you can just leave so easily? Aya, please don't let us go. The Chiu family is so powerful, they can crush us like ants. Claudia looked at Chiu Yunqi's ashen face, and did not dare say a word. She had never thought that the situation would escalate to such a stage. She realized that she had underestimated the lunatics of the Iron Mask army. She initially thought that even if they did not place Elizabeth Tradings in their eyes, they would definitely not dare to provoke the Chiu family. He could not believe his own ears. Imprisoning the Chiu family? He did not know if such a thing had ever happened before, but in his memories, it had never happened before. No one had ever dared to treat the Chiu family with such an attitude. Even the sworn enemy of the Chiu family did not dare to do so. The Chiu family's protectiveness was famous in the entire honorable Martial continent. Even Chiu Yong, who was a member of the Chiu family, did not know how the Chiu family would react by imprisoning the Chiu family, but he knew that it would be extremely intense, and many people from Macefield Tradings would die. His words caused another uproar. Jizai was in disbelief that the Chiu family actually dared to cause trouble for them. Are the heads of the Chiu family people kicked by donkeys before? Do the Chiu family really think that they will let the matter of the harbor go? Are there truly such naive people in the world? Could it be that everyone doesn't want to see my big brother? Qiu Yunqi's gaze swept across everyone and laughed like a spring breeze. I think my big brother will definitely want to see everyone. Qiu Yong felt as though he was being stared at by a ferocious wild beast. A cold, intent surged from his feet. His heart was secretly shocked. Such a dense killing intent. He sized up Qiu Yong with an unkind expression, as though he was sizing up a clean cow or sheep, and was considering where to cut. With that, he did not speak any nonsense and sat down on the ground. When the other guards saw Qiu Yong doing that, they all sat down as well. The rest of the people all chimed in, saying that they had matters to attend to. With the master status, he would not bicker with them, but Ji Zhe never thought of letting them off. Chapter 895. He finally understood. In the entire temple, only the great clan elder was irreplaceable. Everyone else, including himself, could be replaced. Adding that they had deep roots, temple could not be as strict as they were with the new prestigious families, and both parties maintained a subtle tacit understanding. All of his attention was placed on one thing. When the ceremony ended, many of the clan elders who were familiar with Jia stepped forward to bid farewell to him. Jia maintained a faint smile the entire time. He was confident and calm, giving people a strong sense of confidence. After he left the Saint Continent, Sacred Son Charles was in charge of the Saint Continent's defense. Although he was worried about the safety of the Saint Continent, but thinking about the many armies and Sacred Son Charles's own strength, he felt more at ease. Temple only had one Sacred Son, but he knew that as long as Temple was willing, as long as the great clan elder was willing, Temple could produce many Sacred Sons in a single night. He knew that there were many other candidates behind him. All of them were meticulously selected, and all of their talents were not inferior to his. It was just that all of the resources were occupied by him. But once the great clan elder lost confidence in him, all of the precious resources would leave him and land on the other candidates. Tang Tian did not have the time to care about all of that. He did not even care about the conflict with the Qiu family, and handed it over to Ji Zhe. Jia patted Sacred Son Charles's shoulder. I'll leave the Saint Continent to your highness. It's fine. Sophie shook her head. She changed the topic. Your highness, we need to make the various families maintain restraint. Recently, there have been a few conflicts in the Saint Continent, like the Qiu family. They have a conflict with the Macefield Trading's family. Although their conflict is more restrained and did not violate the Holy Bell's ban, but if we do not take any measures, the conflict will escalate. Jia Ye's army's mission was not to head to the Southern Alliance, but to the Wei Yi Guan continent. There was no news of Mu Jixia. His whereabouts were unknown. The Wei Yi Guan continent was in danger and needed a powerful military general to hold down the fort. In the current temple, only Master Jia could shoulder such a heavy responsibility. The clan elders knew of the importance of this mission, although it would weaken the Saint Continent's defenses and cause their safety to be threatened, but they knew that if the Savage Continent's army were to enter the Honorable Martial Continent, that would be the most terrifying thing. The clan elders stared at the direction of the army, unwilling to leave for a long time. For some reason, a strange feeling rose in everyone's heart. Even Master Jia was being sent out. Chie is in the Saint Continent. The army moved. Ever since the last time Charles was whipped, the rumor that the great elder was dissatisfied with Charles's performance and might depose Charles had quietly spread in the Divine Temple. To the Qiu family, Macefield Tradings was truly a small family. In the Honorable Martial Continent, the hierarchy between the prestigious families was extremely strict, and the Qiu family was a top-notch prestigious family, and a small family like the Macefield Tradings would never have any conflict of interest. These guys really don't know when to stop. Charles's tone was dissatisfied. At this time, these guys actually still had the mood to cause trouble. Sophie said, "It has something to do with the Elizabeth family." The Elizabeth family suffered a loss at the hands of the Macefield Tradings family, and Qiu Yunqi was rather interested in Claudia and helped her out, but who knew that the Macefield Tradings family would not give in to the Qiu family. However, at a time like this, no one was blind enough to suggest such a thing. Now, Temple needed to rely on the prestigious families, as Temple's strength was already proven to be insufficient to win the war. Temple needed to pull more people onto the war chariot, although it was painful to share the spoils of war, but the most important thing was to win the war. As long as they obtained the resources, the candidates would grow at an astonishing speed and could easily replace him. The orderly army was solemn and silent. Jia Ye's expression was solemn, the light aura that resembled snowflakes scattered down, causing the scene to have a sacred feeling. The clan elders stood on the circular stairs, watching the army that was fully equipped and ready to move out. Sophie was speechless. Ever since the great clan elder whipped Charles, Charles had become slightly sensitive and weak. His self-confidence seemed to have disappeared overnight, and he had become paranoid, causing Sophie to not know how to console Charles. Sophie knew the reason, but she was helpless. Charles was afraid. Charles's position had always been stable, but that stability came from the great clan elder's support. Since young, the great clan elder had favored him, and his path had been smooth sailing without any setbacks. Thus the clan elders had always praised him. He didn't expect that after a failed mission and a lashing, everything would change. Charles, who returned to his study, sat on a chair, his expression not looking too good. Jia Ye was famed for his defense, and with the trust of the great clan elder, he had always been guarding the center of the army. He had a quiet and indifferent personality, and stood aloof from worldly affairs, although everyone respected him, but most of the time, this great general did not have any sense of existence, and was always forgotten by everyone. At the moment, Charles was like a wild beast trapped in a cage. He was furious but powerless to struggle. Don't care? How can I not care? Charles suddenly flew into a rage. His handsome face looked extremely sinister. Am I that unreassuring to them? There is the honorable martial banner of knights here, and so many prestigious families, all these old men. Why are they so worried about me? Am I that useless in their eyes? Regardless of whether it was the Southern Alliance's legendary Heaven's Road passage, or the Gold Continent bandits that were roaming everywhere, or the Sin Domain survivors that had risen from the ashes, none of them were as important as the Wei Yi Guan continent. The savage continent's entry into the pass, just thinking about it caused people to tremble. It would truly shake the foundations of temple. But at that moment, looking at Jia Ye's army that was fully equipped and ready to move out, the clan elders realized that their hearts were actually filled with unease. Previously, no matter how dangerous the situation was, including the pressure from the savage continent's army, they did not have any worries about their own safety. It was not that the current Saint Continent did not have any armies. On the contrary, with the ringing of the holy bell, all the armies in the world had gathered in the Saint Continent, and there were armies everywhere, but it still did not make them feel completely safe or at ease. It was the same for Jia Ye's army. The most eye-catching army in the Saint Continent was the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights. They held a high position. Every single one of them were powerful martial artists, the symbol of invincibility. The glorious Honorable Martial Banner of Knights was the dream of the youths. She replied solemnly, yes. After presiding over the ceremony, the clan elders had completely forgotten about his existence. The worry on their faces revealed the uneasiness in their hearts. And to Charles, the uneasiness was a lack of trust in him, because he was the one in charge of the defense of the Saint Continent. The Honorable Martial Banner of Knights formed a law enforcement group and started to patrol the Saint Continent. In a short span of a day, they had quelled over 10 disputes. Over 40 people who did not listen to them were killed, and 2 prestigious families were stripped of their qualifications. If they lost, they would lose everything. Sophie's eyes lit up. The decisive and confident majesty in front of her was the majesty she was familiar with. Charles noticed the worry on everyone's faces, and silently left. Charles bowed slightly and spoke solemnly, "Do not worry, the light is eternal. Send out the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights." Charles said, "Tell them, I do not care what grudges they have in the past. At this critical juncture, whoever dares to cause trouble, Temple will not tolerate it. Make the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights prepare yourselves. Whoever does not listen to my advice and disobeys Temple's orders will be killed without mercy." Charles could not help but admire the great clan elder's shrewdness. Before the situation had deteriorated, he had already decided to ring the holy bell. The great clan elder and Jia Ye had talked until late last night, and did not appear today. Sacred son Charles presided over the ceremony, and he was the last to go up. The 5 great generals had set off at the same time. It was something that had never happened before. Temple had never been so empty before. It was a place that made people feel uneasy. In that moment, the armies that had gathered in the Saint Continent became obedient. In his heart, there was nothing more important than this. The rumors were not scary, but what truly made Charles panic was that a few of the clan elders were affected, and their attitudes towards Charles had a subtle change. He had even heard some of the clan elders discussing privately, thinking that he did not have the ability to take over the great clan elder's position in the future. The ashen-faced Charles finally calmed down, his expression returned to normal, and he spoke to Sophie apologetically. "I am sorry, Sophie, I should not have gotten angry at you." Charles frowned. The Chiu family? Why would they have a conflict with a small family like Macefield Tradings? Sophie, who came and looked at him and said, "Don't mind them." He started to feel the pressure, and his temper became even more irritable. The great clan elder held supreme authority in Temple, and even Charles's position as a sacred son could be removed by the great clan elder, as long as he was willing. And inside Temple, the voices to suppress the top-notch prestigious families had never stopped. When Jia Yu's army's fleet disappeared into the distance, the clan elders left in groups of 2s and 3s. Their faces were filled with indescribable loneliness and worry. The clan elders then understood the army that usually did not have any sense of existence was the true reason why they felt at ease. Jia nodded his head and bowed to Charles. He then turned and gave the order, "Move out." Charles knew that he could not allow it to continue. The friction between the prestigious families would become more and more intense, and once they were to fight, it would become uncontrollable. At that time, Temple would be completely passive, and punishing the prestigious families would only cause them to feel resentment. Temple. But the current problem did not make Charles feel relaxed. The grievances between the prestigious families were extremely complicated, and some of them even dated back a few hundred years. All of these families did not give in to each other, and it was extremely easy for conflicts to occur, and the conflict between the Chiu family and Macefield Tradings was just a small part of it. The long time, the long distance, the intense yearning, the anxious waiting, the trekking day and night, the never-ending battles, all of it was for this moment of reunion. The relationship between Temple and the prestigious families was not as good as the outside thought, especially the top-notch prestigious families. They were different from the new prestigious families. They no longer needed the recognition of Temple, and furthermore, they had many conflicts with Temple, with many conflicts of interest. All of the top-notch prestigious families rose up when the Honorable Martial Continent was first established, and had contributed greatly to the Honorable Martial Continent, thus they did not fear or respect Temple. Chapter 896. His slap was extremely powerful, causing Chiu Yunqi to be unable to crawl up for a long time. "Seems like all of you have rested enough, then we need to move our muscles." Fu Zhengji's eyes twitched. Seems like the Lady Boss subordinates are not easy to deal with. Heading to the Southern Alliance, the supply of guards is much better, and the Southern Alliance can be considered to be expanding our territory. Not every place was as happy as Macefield's Tradings branch. In another corner of Snow City, the atmosphere in the strict manor was extremely tense. With that said, he did not even look at Chiu Yunqi, and left indifferently. The situation was becoming more and more complicated, and Sophie did not like complicated situations at all. "I would rather fight a vigorous battle to my heart's content." Chiu Li nodded his head. He was familiar with Chiu Beifeng's temper, and knew that if Chiu Yunqi was truly unable to handle Macefield's trading, Chiu Beifeng would definitely kill him. Chiu Beifeng did not do anything. A Honorable Martial Banner of Knights reported, "Chiu Yunqi is making connections everywhere, as though he wants to complete his revenge through himself. I heard that he was punished by Chiu Beifeng, and Chiu Beifeng said that if Chiu Yunqi is unable to complete his revenge, then he will personally kill Chiu Yunqi. But we realized that he still sent people to protect Chiu Yunqi in the dark." He forgot to speak and just watched in a daze, watching greedily. Big Brother Tian. Chiu Beifeng wants Chiu Yunqi to take his revenge by himself, so he will not use his personal guards. Sophie's eyes flickered. Chiu Yunqi can only find other people. Keep an eye on the families that Qiu Yunqi is familiar with, especially the Elizabeth family. Warn them, whoever dares to go against His Majesty's orders will be exterminated. We cannot handle the Qiu family, but the Elizabeth family cannot escape. We need to be careful of the guards in the dark. Qiu Beifeng is extremely cunning. A loud slap landed on Qiu Yunqi's face. The strength was so great that Qiu Yunqi's body instantly flew out, smashing heavily onto the bookshelf. Whoosh! More than half of the books fell from the bookshelf and smashed onto Qiu Yunqi's body. Young men and young ladies, hugging, young men and young ladies, spinning, young men and young ladies, pa pa pa, oh my, that was everyone's applause. The fluttering long hair was the string of longing, playing a happy ballad in the sunshine. An intense joy filled every cell in his body. He stared at her in a daze as the sunlight shone on her long black hair. That beautiful face was still the same as it was in the past. It was as if the young girl had walked out of his dreams and was standing in front of him. Macefield Trading's branch. Once the Qiu family was punished, one could imagine what kind of storm it would set off. At that time, Temple was unable to bear the consequences of the Qiu family's retaliation. From the first moment she saw Tang Tian, Chia stood motionless as if she was struck by lightning. She didn't know why, but she pursed her lips like a little girl who had been wronged, and her eyes became misty. All the difficulties, all the longing, all the suffering, all the loneliness, he finally saw it. Everyone knew that the Qiu family would not let this matter rest. Qiu Yunqi would not, Qiu Beifeng would not, they would definitely take action. Bang. Sob sob, fairy tales are all lies. Even Temple was paying attention to the situation. The Honorable Marshal Banner of Knights were stationed in Snow City, obviously worried that Qiu Beifeng would go crazy. This time, Sophie was personally leading the team, showing how important Temple was. The young lady's figure was embedded in the light, embedded in his heart. Bang. Unknowingly, she was already there. He was on the verge of tears. Is it so difficult to have a good fight? Suddenly, Qiu Beifeng muttered, "Go, send some people to follow Yunqi." The knight acknowledged and left. Furthermore, Qiu Li had followed Qiu Beifeng for many years, and had Qiu Beifeng's arrogance. He did not have any interest in a small family like Macefield Trading's. The dreamy voice of Qi immediately broke the last bit of restraint in her heart. Unknowingly, tears blurred her eyes. That blurry figure, that figure who stood in front of her, that figure who refused to admit defeat despite being ridiculed, that figure who was lying in the grass and staring at the sky, and that figure who was writing a letter at the desk, all of these slowly overlapped with each other. The Qiu family understood this logic, and so did the other families. They were all competitors, and that was the reason for the constant friction between the families. Ji Zhe's eyes lit up as he looked at Xiaoman. That blade, that strength, that temper, it's simply too suitable for a fight. Are we really going to let Macefield Trading's off like that? A robust man with a swift and fierce expression came forward. He was called Qiu Li, and was also a disciple of the Qiu family, although he was from a side branch of the Qiu family, but he had followed Qiu Beifeng for many years, and was Qiu Beifeng's capable general. He spoke softly as though he was afraid of scaring her. But the greatest benefit was to go to the Shang continent to search for the passage to Heaven's Road. It was a brand new world, which meant endless opportunities and wealth. If they were able to enter Heaven's Road earlier, the Qiu family's foundation would not fall for 1,000 years. Tang Tian retracted his leg with a calm expression, holding on to Chia's hand. He spoke in a tyrannical manner. Melissa looked at Ji Zhe speechlessly. She had never seen someone who was looking forward to others to find trouble with him. Can you be more normal? What Temple can do is to kill the tragedy before it happens. Luckily, I do not need to think so much. As long as I ensure that the Qiu family does not take action, I will complete my mission. I will leave the rest to the great clan elder and His Highness. It was like a dream, it was like a dream. All the distant scenes, Star Wind City, Andrew Academy, the weak and frail young lady with mucus flowing down her nose, the genius young lady who shook the entire city, the young lady who quietly accompanied him on the mountain, the young lady who risked her life for him. Are you coming or not? Ji Zhe's face was filled with hatred. Say, this Qiu family is a top-notch prestigious family. Why are they so cowardly? Why aren't they coming to get back at them? What are they thinking? Leave it to Yunqi. Even Mace Field Tradings cannot handle them. Such trash has no meaning to live. Qiu Beifeng snorted. This man is vicious and merciless. He even wants to kill his own younger brother. He truly is a butcher. Seems like I came to the right place. Sophie knew that Qiu Beifeng was still worried about the Banner of Knights. If not, he would have taken action long ago. What about being a top-notch prestigious family? What about being proud and having a mountain of face? Where are they? Where are they? The various prestigious families of the Honorable Martial Continent had gathered in the Saint Continent, but with so many prestigious families, there were bound to be people who went to the Shang Continent, and there were bound to be people who stayed in the Honorable Martial Continent. Since the Honorable Martial Continent was not stable internally, regardless of whether it was the Gold Continent Bandits or the Sin Domain, they were existences that gave them headaches, and someone had to exterminate them. Ever since Qiu Beifeng led his personal guards into Snow City, the atmosphere in Snow City suddenly became tense. Qiu Beifeng's strength was much stronger than Qiu Yunqi, and his fame was much greater than Qiu Yunqi. But he was most famous for his callous killing. He was a cold-blooded butcher, and no one knew how many people had died in his hands. A foot stepped on Ji Zhe's back, causing Ji Zhe's eyes to widen. He was unable to react in time, and like a rubber ball, he rolled out over 30 m. That's right. Exen, who was by the side, had a bored look on his face. He used his arms as a pillow and laid on the ground, and said weakly, "Can't life have some meaning? Tang Tian and young Miss are happy, but can't they consider our feelings? Xiao Ran, we cannot watch ourselves rot like this. Quickly come and save me. Just a kiss will do. Are we just going to let it go like this?" Qiu Yunqi suddenly stood up. He who was usually calm and collected, had a sinister look on his face, veins popping out. Macefield Tradings is just an ant, and dares to climb on top of us. Is our Qiu family's face so worthless? In front of so many people, our Qiu family is a joke, and we can't even take care of a small worm like Macefield Tradings? Temple is intentionally siding with Macefield Tradings. This is against our Qiu family, so what if the Banner of Knights Regiment? As long as they dare to move. No one knew where she came from, but she was there. But this time, our only goal is to obtain the chance to go to the Shang continent. Qiu Beifeng said indifferently. Under the sunlight, the beautiful figure was extremely familiar. With just one look, Tang Tian could recognize her. Countless of emotions, countless of happiness, all of them turned into tears, and she leapt into Tang Tian's embrace. "What's the situation?" Sophie asked. The benefits in the Honorable Martial Continent had long been divided up. The various families had already divided up their territories, and staying in the Honorable Martial Continent was just hard work. Everyone's faces suddenly became weird. Sophie could not help but frown. Qiu Beifeng did not place the Sacred Sun's orders in his eyes at all. "Chia." His voice sounded like he was talking in his sleep. He did not have the tyrannical aura of a constellation master. He did not have the killing intent of an undefeatable war god. The current Tang Tian was just a big boy. But Qiu Beifeng did not make any movements, as though he had forgotten about it. But Sophie was extremely calm. Qiu Beifeng was cunning and ruthless, and would always launch a fatal attack when the opponent was lax. Sophie was clear that her greatest use was to intimidate the Qiu family, and if the Qiu family were to truly take action and trample over Macefield Tradings, Temple would be helpless, and would not be able to punish the Qiu family. "Come, let us gamble on the dignity of boss and lady boss. Let us fight to our heart's content. If you were not my little brother, you would already be dead." Qiu Beifeng's gaze did not have a trace of warmth, as though he was talking about an ordinary matter. "You keep saying that other people are ants, but you yourself cannot even defeat an ant. If you are not trash, then what are you? This is the first time, and also the last time. I don't care which woman you like, I don't care what you do, but I have to make one thing clear to you: do not become trash. I hate trash. This is your last chance. If you are still trash in the future, I will personally kill you." Qiu Beifeng returned to the barracks. Ever since he took control of the army, he had insisted on eating and living with the soldiers. The door-sized Zanbato slapped Exen like a fly swatter. An expressionless man retracted his right hand. He looked similar to Qiu Yunqi, but he was even more cold and indifferent, his entire body filled with killing intent. He was Qiu Yunqi's big brother, Qiu Beifeng. Chapter 897. Because the Qiu family would feel embarrassed. Charles knew that it was a test given to him by the great clan elder. If he could control the situation, his position would be unshakable. If he could not, then he would be in danger. Charles is dead. The Qiu family wanted to establish their might, not to the other families, but to Temple. Sophie, who had unsheathed her sword, looked around and spoke with a stern tone. Temple has traitors, they have colluded with the prestigious families, and are working together. With His Highness dead, who will benefit? The candidates for the sacred son. The clan elders will definitely request for a new sacred son. Temple cannot do without one, furthermore at such a crucial time. It truly is a good timing. All the prestigious families are working together to force Temple to abdicate. For the sake of the bigger picture, even the great clan elder has to lower his head. The two of them suddenly thought about the bodyguard who led the way. One of the honorable martial banner of knights flashed and appeared outside the hall. When he saw the bodyguard whose head was smashed to pieces, his face turned ashen. Charles always had the illusion that there were always eyes secretly watching him in the shadows behind him. The honorable martial banner of knights trembled, their expressions were blank, but quickly turned into anger. Her voice was cold. To be familiar with Temple, to have the ability to set up a trap, and to grasp the timing so accurately, other than the top families, no one else can do that. Snow City. Charles was enraged. The Qiu family did not place Temple in their eyes at all. And the one in charge of the matter was Charles, and the Qiu family did not give him any face. Suddenly, an indiscernible and sharp energy fluctuation came out from the hall, causing their faces to change, and without hesitation, they rushed in. This was the pride of any honorable martial banner of knight, and their belief. Oh my God! How is that possible? Maybe I am not used to Sophie not being by my side. Charles laughed at himself. The alarm sounded out in Temple. Qiu family. Charles muttered, revealing a look of deep thought. He opened his eyes wide. There was a fist-sized hole in his throat, blood spurted out and flowed down his neck, and in the next moment, there was a pool of blood below him. Charles walked around the hall, and the two honorable martial banner of knights who were guarding the door followed. Sophie brought the honorable martial banner of knights away, but left 10 of them behind to protect Charles. Although Charles felt that it was unnecessary, but he was still moved. Everyone was silent. They were shocked by their leader's guess. Inside the temple, His Highness Charles was assassinated. They had been selected from young and received the most cruel and harsh training, and were eliminated time and time again. They had given up everything for Temple, and that was what they had been taught since young, and it was also what they believed in. In their hearts, other than Holy Cathedral, there was nothing else. He laughed at himself. This is Temple, a place with the most radiant energy. How can there be shadows? The sanctum of light was filled with dense light energy. They emitted a gentle white light, illuminating every corner of the sanctum as if it was daytime. They are afraid, but they know that this is the only chance for Temple to lower their heads. Sophie was as calm as ice. Because we are more afraid, the clan elders are even more afraid. Charles recognized the guard and nodded. I'll go over now. Charles sorted out his distracting thoughts. The branch hall in front of him was simple and very quiet. The great clan elder always liked such a place. Even though he was in a high position, the great clan elder was extremely simple, which was something that everyone in Temple respected. The guard led the way, while Charles followed behind and asked, "Do you know what's going on? My own subordinates can't even win against an opponent of the same rank. What qualifications do they have to be the Qiu family's subordinates?" Sophie spoke word by word, her killing intent overflowing. At that moment, she looked like a death god that had walked out from hell. So, unknowingly, Temple has already become like this? The conflict between Macefield Tradings and Elizabeth was a conflict between two prestigious families of the same rank. The Qiu family had no reason to personally interfere, even if Elizabeth was their subordinate. Charles was clear of the habits of the first-rate prestigious families. If it was a prestigious family that was of a higher rank than Elizabeth, the Chiu family would definitely take action. But if a family of the same rank or weaker defeated Elizabeth, the Chiu family would definitely not take action. Forever bright. They did not know who the true culprit was, but there was one thing they were sure of: it was definitely done by someone from Temple. That was the reason why they were at a loss. In the history of Temple, something like this had never happened before. Temple had always been united, and never had any internal strife. Sophie was not afraid of the great clan elder, because they were as close as father and daughter. But the great clan elder did not show any respect to them, and they had only seen the great clan elder a few times. Furthermore, the great clan elder's holy flames brought forth an extremely powerful pressure that caused fear. Charles, who sensed the danger, knew that he had to fight with his life on the line. Sophie walked out without turning back and said, "We don't need evidence." The two knights' faces turned as white as paper. It was something that had never happened before in the history of Temple. Temple's security was extremely tight, and outsiders were unable to infiltrate. One of the guards walked up and spoke respectfully. "Your Highness, the great clan elder invites you over." Charles thought for a moment. Could it be that the great clan elder has designs on the Chiu family? With the great clan elder's tyrannical personality, he will definitely not tolerate the Chiu family. If it was the great clan elder, how would he deal with the Chiu family? The great clan elder has deep foresight. Who knows, he might have even deeper plans. Sophie slowly stood up. Her body was still trembling, but she stubbornly stood up. Her face was pale white without a trace of blood. Her eyes were deep and dark, and her entire body was releasing a terrifying aura. One of the knights asked anxiously, "Commander, what's wrong with His Highness?" "We will definitely not let them go. All the prestigious families deserve to be killed." Charles was disgusted with the Chiu family's actions. If the Chiu family had been wronged and used such a method to display their strength, he would feel much better. Temple was willing to cooperate with such a top-notch prestigious family. But when the Chiu family arrived in the Saint Continent, they did not come to the Honorable Martial Palace to visit the great clan elder. They did not come to visit him. They did not even greet Temple, but killed the chicken to warn the monkey. His Highness was assassinated. "Who is it?" one of the knights asked in anger. The guard brought Charles to a branch palace door, stopped, and bowed. "Your Highness, please enter. The great clan elder is inside." "Your Highness." When the two of them barged into the palace, they coincidentally saw Charles falling to the ground. Someone broke the silence. "Then what do we do now?" "Kill them. It's those prestigious families." Charles scoffed at the rumors of Macefield Trading's provoking the Chiu family, as it was completely baseless. Macefield Trading's strength was there for all to see. They were unable to pose any threat to the Chiu family, so why would Chiu Beifeng bring his personal guards to retrieve their face? Outsiders. No, this is a meticulous plan by the people inside Temple. In their hearts, Temple was the most sacred place in the world. Charles's mind moved quickly. Facing the great clan elder, anyone would feel pressured, including him. The only exception was probably Sophie. "It seems to be about the Chiu family." The guard spoke softly. Without Sophie around, the familiar temple seemed to have become much more spacious. The knights were all stirred up to take revenge for Charles. Sophie's eyes flashed with a cold glint. Chiu Beifeng must die. But, at such a crucial moment, His Highness was actually assassinated. The impact on them was far beyond their imagination. To even dare to assassinate a sacred son, these people? Sophie's banner of knights was something that no family could contend against. The two of them stood guard outside obediently. If His Highness were to call them in, they would become anxious instead. Everyone was dumbstruck. One of the knights with an explosive temper roared, "Aren't they afraid of the situation collapsing?" "Wait for me here," Charles said to the two honorable martial banner of knights. And Temple made them believe in Temple even more. Regardless of where they were, Temple would always be respected. Temple's internal department was also united as one. They had won time and time again, proving Temple's strength and righteousness. Sophie, who stood up straight, held onto the sword hilt at her waist. Her face was still pale white, but her aura was as sharp as an unsheathed sword. In his deep eyes, there was sorrow as deep as the sea. He had sent Sophie over to watch over the Chiu family. If the Chiu family truly dared to go against Temple's orders, he would make an example out of them. To Charles, the conflict between the Chiu family and Macefield Tradings was the Chiu family's doing. What signal are they trying to send out? Charles felt uneasy, probably because Sophie was not by his side. Since young, Sophie had been his bodyguard, and could be said to be inseparable, and the honorable martial banner of Knight's encampment was not far from him. Who did it? Thinking about the situation, Charles frowned. In the past, when he interacted with the prestigious families, he felt that they were submissive to Temple. But this time, it had completely toppled his view. He finally understood why so many clan elders wanted to suppress the prestigious families. Usually, the prestigious families were like wild beasts that had kept their claws and fangs, and looked docile. But wild beasts were wild beasts, no matter how well they disguised themselves. At the crucial moment, their ferocious nature would be revealed. With so many prestigious families, if they did not kill 1 or 2 chickens, no one would listen to orders. His Highness is dead? Sophie's face suddenly changed. She held onto her chest. The intense pain caused her body to tremble uncontrollably. The two of them obeyed and stood guard outside the palace. Their statuses were high and mighty, and they could move freely in Temple. The only place that they did not dare to do anything was in front of the great clan elder. The two of them felt as though they were struck by lightning, and only then did they react. Assassination. His Highness Charles was assassinated. The surrounding honorable martial banner of knights were all stunned. They had never seen their commander in such pain and helplessness. But we have no evidence. His body trembled like a sieve, his body curled up into a ball, as though he was enduring the immense pain. His trembling voice came out from the gaps of his teeth, bringing with it an incomparable sorrow and pain. I do not know who it is, Sophie said coldly, but slowly unsheathed the sword at his waist. But I know that the Chiu family is definitely involved. I was curious previously, why would the Chiu Bei Feng Peak come to Snow City? Now I understand, their goal is to move us away from His Highness. The conviction in their hearts crumbled, causing them to be at a loss. Chapter 898. Charles's death shocked the entire sacred Saint Galaxy. If they had no choice, Temple would definitely not take action against the Chiu family. He continued, after killing a few important figures from the prestigious families will definitely point their spears at Temple. There will be no room for reconciliation, and the confrontation will only become more intense. The prestigious families do not have any leeway to retreat, and if they fail, will Temple let them go? So they can only take this path to the end, and force Temple to retreat, and force the great clan elder to hand over his authority. When the nest is overturned, there will be no eggs left intact. He blurted out. Chia had analyzed the situation with him. Unless the Chiu family truly did not know what was good for them, Temple had no reason to take action against them. Temple currently needed the strength of the prestigious families, and the Chiu family was a true top-notch prestigious family with astonishing influence. Furthermore, Chiu Suhua was still fighting in the Southern Alliance. But today, Bianchi had seen over 200 temple protectors along the way. It was the first time he knew that temple protectors actually had so many of them. To fish in troubled waters, the more chaotic the situation, the more leeway we can display, the more space we can operate, and the more opportunities we have. Sima Zhao's eyes lit up. To him, such a chaotic situation was what he loved the most. We can take the chance to get rid of a few important figures from the prestigious families. Bianchi regained his senses. He knew that Mr. Benny came from the Macefield Tradings family. Even a small family like Macefield Tradings is unable to hold back? To everyone, for such an important matter to spread throughout the entire sacred Saint Galaxy in the blink of an eye, it was obvious that the mastermind behind it was adding fuel to the fire. Time, money, and dripping water can pierce through a stone. Melissa received the news, and when she saw it, she could not believe her own eyes. She stumbled and ran in to report to Tang Tian and Chia. Xian and Sima Xiao had the same opinion, and spoke at the same time. Thinking about how Go Cheng Wendao had not received any news from the back, and the news of Charles's death had already spread throughout the Southern Alliance, Go Cheng Wendao's face would definitely be extremely interesting. All of the Sacred Sun candidates have been captured, Seuss said softly. Great Clan Elder gave the order. Melissa's expression was extremely agitated, her voice was still trembling. Just now, the Chiu family's stronghold was ambushed by the Banner of Knights, Chiu Yunqi was killed on the spot, Chiu Beifeng was heavily injured, and his personal guards were completely annihilated. Chia was much calmer. She had never met Charles before, so she didn't react to the news. Instead, she immediately considered the gains and losses. Bianchi's eyes suddenly widened as he stood rooted to the spot. It took him a long time to recover his senses and murmured, "How could this be? How could this be, they're alone? Of course they wouldn't dare." Seuss coldly snorted, his face overflowing with killing intent as he said hatefully, "With the support of those famous families, it's naturally different." Today, the family heads of a few small sects said that they hoped to elect a new saint as soon as possible. Bianchi was shocked. For him to become a St. Hall elder, he was naturally not stupid. Now that something had happened to Her Highness, the greatest suspects were these candidates. But he had to admit that Temple's method was extremely effective. While the other powerhouses were scheming against each other, Temple had always been united. The orders of the higher-ups would be carried out unconditionally. Their soldiers were filled with fanaticism and were not afraid of sacrificing themselves. Tang Tian's gaze turned to Chia, but it was a pity that he could not see it. Seuss remained silent for a long time before replying. She didn't say anything. Because of that, the outside world was filled with fear and respect towards Temple. In their eyes, such a Temple was undefeatable. As per usual, Clan Elder Bianchi arrived at Temple. But he immediately sensed that something was amiss. Temple's security was tight, and there were guards everywhere. The storm had just begun. Seuss's expression became gloomy, he raised his head and looked around, and spoke softly as well. "Something big has happened. Her Highness has been assassinated." Bianchi was also silent. Seuss is right. With the great clan elder's domineering personality, if not for the current situation, he would have definitely uprooted all the prestigious families and left none alive. "What did you say? How dare they?" Bianchi's face was still filled with disbelief. Something must have happened. Tang Tian was dumbstruck, as though he had heard something inconceivable. "We need to immediately spread the news." Of course, it was the Chiu family. Bianchi's face flashed with a look of anger. "Asshole! Sacred Son Charles's assassination has destroyed everything." Hearing Xian and Sima Zhao's words, Tang Tian's heart felt great. In the past, no matter what situation he encountered, he could only rack his brains. But now, all of his subordinates were experts, fierce generals and strategists. "Ayaya, why am I so powerful?" Melissa immediately replied, "It happened last night." Bianchi did not know how he returned home, but when he walked out of Temple, he saw the second group of prestigious families entering Honorable Martial Palace. "They know." Seuss became quiet after speaking, then spoke with difficulty, "But they also know that only in such a situation will the great clan elder be willing to compromise with them." Seuss had a lot of authority, and was roped in by various parties, thus he was well informed. In the Honorable Martial Continent, any powerhouse knew that understanding Temple's thoughts was more useful than anything else. Infiltrating Temple was naturally difficult, but if it was related to the survival of the family, then they had to do it. "Master, Mr. Benny wishes to meet you." The butler's voice came out from outside the study. Bianchi felt an indescribable sorrow. He suddenly had a feeling that the powerful Temple would never appear again. For some reason, the feeling was extremely strong. It caused his heart to be enveloped by sorrow, and he asked with difficulty, "What did the great clan elder say?" Bianchi walked over and asked softly, "What's going on? What happened?" "That's a good idea," Xian said excitedly. "We need to help the prestigious families. The 5 great generals are Temple's armies. Will they be loyal to Temple or will they rely on the prestigious families? What about their soldiers?" As long as the prestigious families hold power, the honorable martial continent will start to split. Why would the armies that are loyal to temple listen to the orders of the prestigious families? Why would the prestigious families be at ease with so many armies disobeying their orders? To enter temple, one had to go through many rounds of selections, and every round would require an oath, a test of the holy flame. Do not think that it was just a form of ceremony, it was real and effective. Anyone who went against the oath would be severely punished, and the punishment would usually come from the soul, with nowhere to escape, and the higher the rank, the greater the restriction. He sat on the chair as though his soul had left his body. They are just testing the waters. Seuss's face became gloomy. The old men behind them are the real masterminds. They are truly too vicious. To pick such a critical juncture, they must have planned it out. Bianchi was panicking. That's right, don't they know how dangerous the situation is? Don't they know that if we lose the war, the entire honorable martial continent will be finished? A cold glint flashed past Chia's eyes. Something must have happened to Temple. Send people to investigate. This information is extremely important to us. We need to do it at all costs. The only people who could assassinate Charles were people from within Temple, or else they were colluding with the outside. That was equally shocking. Temple's ability to control the loyalty of their members could be said to be unparalleled. Chia muttered, "When did this happen? But there's no reason for it. Are the Banner of Knights crazy?" Tang Tian felt that he could not understand the situation at all. There was no need to talk about the Banner of Knights' fighting strength. He had personally experienced it. To him, it was normal for the close guards to be wiped out, but Qiu Beifeng was only heavily injured and was able to escape, proving that he was not weak. Following that, the conflict between Temple and the prestigious families surfaced, and became the hottest topic of discussion. Because of that, Temple had never had any traitors, which was also the reason why many people hated Temple. To many people, Temple's complete control over people's bodies and minds was completely against human nature. It was easy to spread the news. He and Bing were connected, and it was extremely convenient. She knew that Chia was the lady boss, and thus her attitude was respectful, not daring to be negligent. All of them who followed Tang Tian were extremely clear of the lady boss's position in Tang Tian's heart, and did not dare to be impudent. As for disguising Temple and killing a few important figures from the top-grade prestigious families, Tang Tian did not even need to think about it. He had his first target. The sacred son held a high position in the honorable martial continent. He was viewed as an important figure who would take over the great clan elder, and his death had shaken the entire sacred saint galaxy. Furthermore, he had died from an assassination, and in the history of Temple, there had never been an important figure who had died from an assassination. Temple had their own unique methods of defending against assassinations, adding that Temple's system was extremely strict and had a natural distance from the outside world. It was extremely difficult for assassins from the outside world to infiltrate Temple. Bianchi felt uneasy. When his eyes suddenly lit up, he saw Clan Elder Seuss not far away. He and Clan Elder Seuss were extremely close, and they were different from him, who was the last-ranked clan elder. Seuss's position was extremely high, and he was a clan elder with true authority. If one were to say that one needed to interact with Tang Tian for a period of time to understand how powerful he was, then one only needed to interact with Chia for a short period of time to deeply understand how powerful she was. The guards of the temple had a special title, Temple Protector. On normal days, temple protectors could only be seen from the corners. They were almost invisible, and the clan elders were not affected at all. Understood. Melissa clenched her teeth and agreed. He sighed in his heart and said indifferently, "Invite him in." When Tang Tian saw the report, he was startled. He had seen Charles before, and from the start, Charles had always been on his blacklist. Assassinating Charles was one of the first plans that he, Chia, and Bing had decided on after discussing. The Macefield Trading's family was not considered strong, but they had crossed the threshold of being a prestigious family. It was naturally impossible for them to have much influence, but they still had one or two clan elders that they were familiar with. All of these clan elders were fed with money, but did not need to do anything, all for this moment. Xian and Sima Shao were called in to discuss. Xian was proficient in strategy, while Sima Xiao was proficient in trickery. But who knew that Charles would be assassinated? Chapter 899. A series of sneers and the word, training, that was comparable to hell caused everyone's heart to tremble. Be careful, don't try to be brave. Chie said gently. It was a taboo in an army battle. Xian was not too sure. Could it be a trap? Fu Jingji heard that. No way, how can I let Jizai lose? He immediately roared, everyone, bring out your spirit, raise your heads and puff out your chests, be tyrannical, be more tyrannical, that Xiao Wu, you need to look fierce. Qiu Tianqi knew why Sophie took action, and knew what the Qiu family was doing in the dark, but so what? Even Temple did not dare to publicly announce that the Qiu family was involved in the assassination of His Highness, so if the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights dared to take action against the Qiu family, they would be breaking the rules. Tang Tian raised his right hand in a tyrannical manner. Hold the line. The other generals all stood up and followed behind Qiu Tianqing. Qiu Tianqing was enraged. He was extremely enraged, causing transparent ripples to form around him, causing the air in the hall to become restless and filled with killing intent. All of the generals sat upright, not daring to make a sound. Temple's methods were becoming more and more ruthless, causing worry to rise in his heart. It was completely different from what they had expected. The various prestigious families were unhappy with Temple for a long time. Temple was like a monster that continued to expand and devour everyone's living space. Boss, don't worry. We will definitely not let you lose face in front of Lady Boss. Jizai immediately patted his chest and promised. I don't think you guys will surrender. This is going to be a good show. Everyone agreed loudly and dispersed. Some rolled up their sleeves, some picked up their knives, some picked up their swords, and some spat saliva as they carried their hammers. They only regretted that they didn't have the tiger and dragon tattoos. Otherwise, they would look like gangsters challenging each other to a fight. Qiu Yunqi and Qiu Beifeng were both sons of the Qiu family. Although Qiu Beifeng's personal guards only had 100 men, they were extremely powerful and had the reputation of Qiu's Fang, and in the Qiu family's armies, they were ranked in the top 5. The loss this time was huge, and the Qiu family had suffered a huge blow. She glanced at Xian. No wonder we can be friends with him, they are all jackals of the same tribe. This was his first time showing his face in front of Qian Hui. At the thought of such a historic moment, the godlike young man felt his whole body was filled with endless energy. Yunqi was killed? His personal guards were all annihilated? Bei Feng is injured and missing? Xiao Man, who was on the trading ship, was dumbstruck. She, who had killed her way out of the sea of corpses, had an indestructible spirit for tens of thousands of years, was currently staring blankly at Tang Tian. Xiao Man and Xian, who were on the trading ship, were dumbstruck as they watched the god armor army that did not have any formation. When they were some distance away from the merchant ship, Tang Tian felt that Chie couldn't hear him. He coughed and said, "Do you know why I didn't sneak attack you today?" Qiu Tianqing became even more suspicious. Who are they? The more he looked at them, the more Qiu Tianqing felt that they were a group of hooligans collecting protection fees. Sophie wanted to kill someone to establish her might, but unfortunately, she chose the wrong target. The Qiu family was not a dough that anyone could knead. Both of them were generals, and commanding troops was their forte. With a single glance, they could tell that Tang Tian and the others did not have any formation and were in a state of disunity. The temple that was built in the Honorable Martial Continent was completely different from the current temple. In the past, there was an agreement between Temple and the prestigious families to rule over the Honorable Martial Continent, but Temple's strength caused the top-notch prestigious families to retreat. Especially when Temple threw out their trump card to recognize the qualifications of the prestigious families, a new batch of small prestigious families started to pose a threat to the top-notch prestigious families. Tang Tian nodded his head. Yes, yes, yes. The ones who did it were the Banner of Knights. Without any reason, without any notice, they attacked in the middle of the night and killed them. If not for the fact that they were the Banner of Knights, the middle-aged man's first reaction would have been to suspect that someone was playing tricks on them, because it was definitely not temple style. They just massacred the Chiu family's encampment in Snow City last night, and now they are attacking the Chiu Offense Institute. The middle-aged man's mind moved. Temple only had the banner of knights. If the Chiu Offense army disregarded everything and took revenge, both sides would suffer. No, even if they were able to injure the banner of knights, Temple's situation would become much more difficult. Last night, Snow City's Chiu family encampment was massacred, Chiu Yunqi died, Fong of Autumn was completely annihilated, and Chiu Bei Feng escaped with heavy injuries, his whereabouts unknown. Hearing that, one of the bodyguards immediately rushed out and reported, "It's the Chiu Offense Institute." An unmarked merchant ship was anchored roughly 3 kilometers away from the Chiu Offense Institute. It was not big and looked extremely ordinary. Chiu Tianqing frowned. A strange feeling surfaced in his heart. He did not know what was strange, but he felt that something was amiss. Seeing the blush on Chen Hui's face, Tang Tian pretended to wave his arm and shouted, "Let's go! Flatten the Chiu Offense Institute." Ji Zhe immediately refuted. True experts are all leisurely strolling around, calm and unruffled. Being fierce and tyrannical is too deliberate. It does not reflect the demeanor of an expert. Xian's eyes lit up. He could not help but praise. "That's too cool." Xian nodded his head in agreement. He did not know that he had been shot while lying down. "What's so good about sneak attacks? How can we show off our strength?" Tang Tian waved his hand. "For today's battle, not only do we have to win beautifully, we have to show off our might and show off our imposing manner. Let me say the ugly words first. If I find anyone slacking off or not performing well, causing me to lose face in front of Chie, then we will need to have a good talk. For example, training Chiu Tianqing, you better not disappoint me." Chiu Tianqing stood at the highest point and looked out of the manor. "The enemy is heavily guarded." Fu Zhengji swallowed the words that were at his throat and asked, "Boss, what do you mean?" "Then I'm coming." Tang Tian agreed. That's right. The soldiers." Tang Tian exhaled. He lowered his waist into a horse stance, and under the countless stunned and sluggish gazes, he raised his right arm and retracted it to his side. Chiu Tianqing's gaze congealed. The smile on his face became even colder. "Look, this is a world where the strong preys on the weak. If you are even slightly weaker, you will be swallowed until not even your bones are left." "Are they purposely pretending to be weak?" Chiu Tianqing quickly shook his head. The enemy's formation was a complete mess. They did not even have the standard of amateurs. No matter how much the banner of knights tried to disguise themselves, they would definitely not be able to disguise themselves to such an extent. "I'm going." Tang Tian puffed out his chest and spoke to Chie valiantly. "Boss is mighty." Between Cloud City, inside a luxurious study, the middle-aged man heard the alarm. He stopped what he was doing and raised his head. "Where is the alarm coming from?" "Chiu Offense Institute." The middle-aged man's eyes constricted. It was the Chiu family's Chiu Offense Army encampment. Thinking about the latest report, the middle-aged man felt uneasy. A change suddenly occurred. Did we truly misjudge Temple's reaction? One by one, the top-notch families that were once in the limelight fell, causing the old top-notch families to feel an intense sense of danger. A group of people howled like a pack of hungry wolves and jumped out of the cabin door. The middle-aged man who had just rushed over was dumbstruck. His mind was filled with only one sentence. What the hell is going on? Since when did our Chiu family become sheep that others can kill whenever they want? A cold light flashed past his eyes, and his 5 fingers clenched into fists. Valiantly walking to the Chiu Offense Institute's simple and unadorned door, Tang Tian became excited. As he finished speaking, he strode out. "Do they really have fighting strength?" Xiao Man asked softly, her tone extremely strange. I can't go. He calmed himself down. He did not believe that Temple had the courage to perish together with them. The honorable martial continent belonged to Temple, and even if they snatched back some benefits from Temple, it would not change that fact. With that, he jumped out of the cabin door. The people below were all enraged, their eyes bloodshot. The Chiu family had never suffered such humiliation before without any reason. They actually killed an important member of the Chiu family, even if it was Temple or the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights. The Chiu family could not accept it. Tang Tian was extremely satisfied. Little Zai Zai, not bad. Come, what ideas does everyone have? We need to show our might. The merchant ship opened the cabin door, revealing the darkness inside, causing everyone to be unable to see anything, causing the Chiu offense army to hold their breaths and open their eyes wide. Chiu Tianqing looked ordinary, but when he was enraged, he looked like a tiger or a lion. His gaze swept across the generals, his eyes were cold without a trace of warmth. He suddenly laughed, as though he was a wild beast that wanted to devour people, his ferocious aura wreaking havoc. They wanted to change everything, but Temple's rule was as stable as a rock, without any flaws. Until the holy bell rang, all of the prestigious families immediately realized that the opportunity they had been waiting for had finally appeared. An enraged roar exploded out from a manor in St. Continents between Cloud City. Furthermore, Temple only has the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights left. Do they still think they are the same as before? The Chiu Offense Institute's Chiu Offense Army was the Chiu family's strongest army, far stronger than Chiu Beifang's personal guards. Temple wanted to use the Chiu family to intimidate everyone, but Chiu Tianqing was an unyielding man and would definitely not kneel and surrender. We better prepare to rescue them. Xiaoman's mouth twitched. Fu Zhengji and Ji Zai were two people that sucked up to others. It was not enough for them to suck up to Tang Tian, they still wanted to suck up to the young Mississippi. Just at that moment, the alarms suddenly went off. Unknown people were approaching them. Chiu Tianqing, who was brimming with killing intent just a moment ago, frowned. He felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. All of them are wearing masks. I can't see their faces, but why are their postures so weird? And their temperament? Chiu Tianqing's mouth revealed a sneer. Chiu Tianqing looked at the 100-odd people that came down from the trading ship. From the numbers, it matches the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, but sweet, it's too sweet, even sweeter than honey. Tang Tian's face was infatuated. No, his mind was infatuated. He repeatedly praised in his heart. The books are right. Heroes have a weakness for beauties. Heroes have a weakness for beauties. The Chiu Offense Institute was the encampment of the Chiu Offense Army, but they were in the St. Continent. Other than Temple, no one else could build a stronghold here. The Chiu Offense Institute was originally an ordinary manor, but the Chiu family had made some modifications to it, for example, adding a few defensive and sentry posts. Sima Xiao could not take it anymore, and coughed lightly. You guys can be intimate after the fight. Tang Tian's shout resonated out, but everyone had not regained their senses from the shock, and in the dead silence, it was extremely clear. Chiu Tianqing was dumbstruck. He had gone through countless battles, but it was the first time he had seen such a scene. Chapter 900. Tang Tian's reply did not have a trace of emotion, and was extremely indifferent. This move was in truth a variation of the awakened god armor, and his state of mind was unknowingly influenced by the awakened god armor. He raised his leg and walked towards the Chiu Offense Institute unhurriedly. Boom! Pa! The light regiment on Tang Tian's right fist suddenly stopped moving, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble, as though they were being pulled by an invisible pair of hands. Chiu Tianqing's body trembled, his face changed, his eyes filled with shock. Tang Tian's eyes lit up with a strange light aura. Chiu Tianqing's heart, which had relaxed slightly because of the energy barrier, suddenly tensed up again. Threads of light of different colors, like colorful lightning, wrapped around his fist. Boom! His right palm gently slashed towards the Chiu Offense Institute. Stabilize the energy barrier. Chiu Tianqing could no longer stand it. He bellowed out loudly, his voice carrying a trace of trembling. The soldiers roared out in unison, the light auras around their bodies exploded out, and white energy dots flew into the sky like fireflies. They continued to melt and expand, transforming into pieces of light leaves. In the entire Honorable Martial Banner of Knights, the only person who could reach such a level of strength was only one person, Sophie. Countless thoughts flashed past his mind. He had never heard of such a powerful person before, as though he came out from a rock. Qiu Tianqing knew that it was impossible. Such a powerful expert could not be nurtured in a day. He had to go through countless of battles and tempering himself. Only then could he transform step by step, and there was no such thing as luck for a strong martial artist. Qie, this day has finally come. Could he be Temple's secret weapon? Tang Tian lowered his head. His masked face was hidden in the shadows. Only his eyes exploded with light, as though the sun had pierced through the shadows. There was only shock left in his eyes. Without Qiu Tianqing's orders, the soldiers continued to increase the thickness of the energy barrier. It showed how well trained and experienced the Qiu offense army was. Qiu Tianqing knew that it was not, although the other party was wearing a mask, but he could tell with one look that it was a man. There was no dazzling light aura, no soul-shaking shriek. Qiu Tianqing's heart jumped, his eyes widened. Be careful. Zzz. Xian's expression was the same. Tang Tian's footsteps did not stop. His right palm struck out again. A sound that was even more terrifying than the previous sound came out, a visible ripple in the air, mixed with the shattered auras that filled the sky. It was as though a tornado had engulfed the entire Qiu Offense Institute. The flat palm entered the path. Compared to the blazing sun just now, the light it emitted now could only be considered weak. This was a completely different feeling. Just now, the ball of light was blazing and overbearing, leaving no doubt about the power of its explosion. But now, this glowing palm had an indescribable magical power. It involuntarily attracted everyone's attention, making them unable to shift their gazes away. Seeing the energy barrier solidifying, Qiu Tianqing heaved a sigh of relief, and the uneasiness in his heart lessened. The Qiu offense army's full-power energy barrier was able to withstand the attacks of warships. Although the opponent's attack looked a little strange, it had taken too long to prepare. In such a long period of time, it was enough for the Qiu offense army's energy barrier to be strengthened to its peak. The law was completely annihilated in the surging ocean of energy, and no one noticed its existence. The astonishing amount of energy was constantly being compressed, and its fluctuations were also constantly changing. The undulations became weaker and weaker, but the heart-palpitating feeling became more and more intense. Regardless of the opponent's attack, the powerful energy barrier would always be effective. This was Qiu Tianqing's experience from countless of battles. Qiu Tianqing knew that the Qiu Offense Institute's pitiful defense was definitely unable to withstand the opponent's earth-shattering attack. Boss is truly the boss. Ji Zhe's eyes lit up. He could not help but praise. When they were still adapting to the sacred Saint Galaxy, Tang Tian was already seeking for a new breakthrough. The shattered auras that were struck flew out, the seemingly solid energy barrier trembled, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. It was as though a drum had been fiercely struck underground. The low and terrifying impact sound caused everyone's heart to tremble and their ears to buzz. How can there be such a powerful person in the world? On the trading ship, Qie's eyes were wide open, her hands covering her mouth, her face filled with shock. It was bewitching and enchanting. Who exactly are you? Qiu Tianqing bellowed, his eyes staring straight at the opponent. The initially dazzling light suddenly dimmed down. The energy that was compressed to the extreme was like a liquid, flowing along Tang Tian's palm and enveloping his palm. A few soldiers who were close to the wall could not react in time and were sliced in half. Tang Tian did not even look. The bewitching jade-like palm was raised up again and slashed down lightly. Sophie? Could it be Sophie? What was strange was that although the light leaves were formed from radiant energy, they did not have any life force, but instead released an indescribable withering aura. His heart jumped. He had been through hundreds of battles, and had survived countless times, and was extremely familiar with the aura of death. The black iron mask was cold and emotionless, while Tang Tian's gaze was indifferent. Qiu Tianqing roared. He had finally thrown the fear in his heart to the back of his mind, and roared, "Autumn wind offense." The stifling sound caused everyone's heart to tremble. The sentry post beneath Qiu Tianqing's body crumbled like paper. His reaction was extremely fast. He flew out the moment the sentry post collapsed and landed on the ground steadily, blood seeping out of the corner of his mouth. God Fist was the starting stance of the awakened God armor, and they were extremely familiar with it. But the God Fist in front of them was completely different from before. Dong 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 dong. How is that possible? Qiu Tianqing looked at Tang Tian's palm in a daze. He had never seen such a strange attack before. But the more it was like that, the more uneasy he felt. The dazzling light aura lit up half of Tang Tian's body, but the other half became even darker. But the one who was the most shocked was Qiu Tianqing. He did not know what the colorful lights were, but the intense and suffocating sense of danger enveloped his entire body. It was as though he was lying under a cold guillotine. The cold blade edge was stuck to his neck, causing all the hairs on his body to stand. The disdain on Xiao Man's face froze, and she blurted out, "What is that? How can a single person's strength reach such a terrifying level?" The soldiers of the Qiu offense army seemed to have awoken from a dream. They frantically gathered, regiment after regiment of light auras rose up, and a thin light screen appeared above their heads, like an inverted bowl of light that enveloped the Qiu Offense Institute. A cold light flashed past Tang Tian's eyes. He raised his palm and slashed in the air. Dozens of withered leaves suddenly lit up and disappeared at the same time. How is that possible? The entire process seemed to have lasted for countless years, but in truth, it was just a snap of a finger. Qiu Tianqing's hand that was holding onto the railing trembled slightly. Qiu Tianqing had fought with the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights before, and knew that the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights had astonishing fighting capabilities, but they were definitely unable to reach such a terrifying level. Not the Honorable Martial Banner of Knights. It was as though it was late autumn, standing in the forest with leaves swirling in the air. The autumn wind swept up the fallen leaves, revealing the bleak autumn atmosphere. His attention finally landed on Tang Tian's body, and he saw an astonishing scene. He clenched his fists tightly. Pa! A crisp sound came out, like glass shattering, a ferocious tiger coming out of its cage. An astonishing aura surged out from Tang Tian's body. Ji Zhe could tell that it was a god fist. The aura of death always causes people's minds to tremble. The Qiu Offense Institute's big door transformed into wood shavings that filled the sky, and was blown away by the wind. He knew that fear would not help him in any way. He forced himself to calm down. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Energy barrier." The Qiu Offense Institute's energy barrier actually showed signs of collapsing under the attack. To a military general, to be facing an attack that he had never seen before, it was not exaggerated at all. The only thing that made Qiu Tianqing feel a sense of security was the thick energy barrier. Qiu Tianqing knew that in the mysterious Heavens Road, they revered individual strength, but the strong martial artists there were definitely unable to contend against an army. To rely on his own strength to destroy the Qiu Offense Army's energy barrier, that also meant that the attack just now had a power that exceeded that of an ordinary warship. The light ball that was flickering and releasing an astonishing light aura caused his heart to jump. Why do I have the feeling that I'm facing a gold-grade warship? Just when everyone thought that Tang Tian was about to unleash his fist, an undetectable smile flashed past Tang Tian's mouth. No one could see it, but the fist inside the light ball had already extended out. The hair-like law threads were dyed dark gold, and appeared on Tang Tian's palm. Tang Tian looked as though he was wearing a dark gold glove woven with gold threads. "Chie, I have always wanted to show you my strength." The heavy drums were so dense that it caused people to be unable to stand steadily. The shattered light auras flew out like wood shavings, causing everyone to feel a chill in their hearts. The thick energy barrier trembled intensely, like an air bubble that could burst at any moment. "You don't need to know." Suddenly, in front of Tang Tian, a blade aura appeared in the air. The blade's body was covered with light leaves. The blade's body suddenly released a light aura, but in the blink of the eye, it dimmed down, and the spirit energy disappeared. It was like a rusty blade covered with withered leaves, corroding and dissipating in the air. Looking at the Qiu Offense Institute's big door, Tang Tian calmed his excited heart. Without needing any encouragement, the fighting spirit in his body was surging to the point that it was about to burst out. Just as everyone was attracted to it, The glowing white jade-like palm gently slashed down in the air, without any trace of fire or chi. The desolate killing intent of the wind suddenly blew, causing the light leaves in the sky to flutter along with the wind. The Chiu Offense Institute's walls that were as sturdy as steel and black rocks seemed to have been slashed horizontally by a blade. Half of the mountain had disappeared. It was collapsing. How can a person's strength be so strong? Who would have thought that the gentle slash would actually produce such a violent effect? Chia, I have become very powerful. Tang Tian's fist was already completely devoid of the rainbow-colored light threads. His fist was currently a blazing sun. Streams of energy that wanted to slash apart the rain of arrows in the sky caused friction in the air, producing streaks of light. They converged from all directions, as though they had smelled prey, and frantically surged towards Tang Tian's fist. Chapter 901. When the autumn offense intent permeated into his body, Tang Tian immediately felt that his state of mind had become sluggish, and his heart trembled. His glass mental state blossomed with light aura, and at the same time, the undying sword in his body suddenly buzzed like a tiger or lion, causing the autumn offense intent that had permeated into Tang Tian's body to immediately dissipate. Sensing the undying sword in his body becoming restless, Tang Tian summoned the undying sword without hesitation. It was the first time Tang Tian had seen an army-killing technique that contained laws. In the sacred Saint Galaxy that was filled with energy, laws were buried under the energy, and the difficulty of gaining enlightenment on laws was much higher than in Sin Domain and Heaven's Road. That was why Tang Tian had never seen anyone gain enlightenment on laws in the sacred Saint Galaxy. Xiao Man immediately asked, "What's wrong?" With Tang Tian's perverse body, the raindrops that hit his body caused him to feel a stinging pain. Every raindrop contained the autumn offense intent that quietly permeated into Tang Tian's body. The waves of ocean of peace that soared into the sky smashed into the sky, smashing into the figures that were smashed into pieces. Shock, disbelief, with a trace of fascination, many of them felt pity, but most of them were fear, the fear of death. His figure rushed into the light, and the sky full of sword hums accompanied Tang Tian's roars. The opponent was extremely powerful, and was the strongest martial artist that Qiu Tianqing had ever seen. But the opponent was too careless, and actually wanted to challenge the entire Qiu offense army by himself. The withered leaves dancing in the sky did not have any signs of decreasing. Whenever the palm auras neared the Qiu Offense Institute, they would be entangled by the withered leaves and disappear. When the opponent slowly raised the bronze sword in his hand, all of the hairs on Qiu Tianqing's body stood, as though he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. He knew that feeling. It meant that he was about to be in danger, extremely dangerous. The bronze sword that was raised up high was like the flag of the Southern Cross Army flying high. The soldiers beside him were equally crazy, and roared in unison, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" Light sword whale song indicated that it looked like it was surging, but it was only on the surface. "What is that?" Exin was startled. He subconsciously raised his head. It was a gold rank army killing technique, and it was a very unique gold rank army killing technique. Compared to the light sword whale song that Tang Tian had experienced before, Autumn Wind Kill was much stronger. That's right, this was the smell of law. The other party's individual strength had far exceeded his knowledge. All the powerful martial artists that were famous for their individual strength, even the legendary Southern Alliance's big boss was definitely not as powerful as the person in front of him. He leisurely walked towards the Qiu Offense Institute. His jade-like right palm continued to slash out, the speed of his slashes becoming faster and faster. Tang Tian was slightly moved. This change was unexpected. Most people would detonate the energy within the raindrops and use it to attack directly. But Qiu Tianqing did not do that. Instead, he hid the autumn offense intent within the energy, and when the raindrops were attacking the enemy's defense, it would quietly seep into the enemy's body. Because they needed people to fight? I'll go fight. You want someone to die? I'll die. Why did he disturb them? Why didn't they let the dead go? The life and death of our army is unknown. how can we rest in peace? The low hum of the sword was like the angry roar of millions of people. They were so angry, so unwilling, so stirring. Truly an unexpected joy. The resonance of the autumn wind offense did not seem to be as powerful as the light sword whale song, but it transmitted the undulation to the bottom of the sea, causing the law threads that resembled water plants to sway. The stirring and stirring aura soared into the sky, causing the surrounding air to form layers of ripples. Suddenly, his pupils constricted. Laws? The autumn wind and autumn rain are so worrying. Qiu Tianqing's shout resonated throughout the Qiu Offense Institute. Autumn! 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 Why are you so unwilling? Bean-sized raindrops poured down, but Tang Tian's footsteps did not stop. Every raindrop contained compressed energy, and although it did not look fast, it was extremely powerful. Tang Tian then realized, no wonder I have a vague sense of familiarity. Laws, under the awakened god armor, Tang Tian was extremely sensitive to laws, although it was not the complete state of the awakened god armor, but he was still able to sense the aura of laws. The light shone into the cabin through the window, causing Xian to feel as though he was struck by lightning. The buzzing of the sword blade was low, like a rising tide. The sound became louder and louder. Tang Tian's eyes lit up again. If not for Tang Tian's fighting style being completely different from Sacred Saint Galaxy martial artists, and his intuition being extremely sharp, the autumn wind and autumn rain might have unknowingly landed on him. The bronze light aura that suddenly lit up shone through the window and onto Xian's sinister face. The pain was extremely clear, so clear that it caused Xiaoman's heart to ache. The bleak and desolate aura that was like a thin mist seemed to be able to seep into people's hearts, causing Tang Tian to feel as though he was standing in the autumn wind. The tens of thousands of trees had withered and withered. The faint cold intent seeped into his bones, causing him to tremble. Tang Tian's eyes lit up with a faint light aura. The reason why no one in the Sacred Saint Galaxy had gained enlightenment on laws, other than the difficulty, the other reason was that the Sacred Saint Galaxy's fighting style was dominated by armies. Their method of gaining enlightenment on laws was different from his own understanding. Although the military generals of the Sacred Saint Galaxy were unable to gain enlightenment on laws by themselves, but they were able to use their own unique methods to do so. Qiu Tianqing's eyes were wide open, staring straight at the bronze sword in Tang Tian's hand. Just like how when Tang Tian saw Qiu Tianqing's autumn wind offense, he could not help but be excited. Qiu Tianqing was the same. An unprecedented opponent had ignited an unprecedented fighting intent in his heart. What an autumn wind offense! The aura of his comrades, the aura of death, the aura of the ocean of peace. He could roughly guess the origin of the sword, but a weapon with the imprint of an army, appearing in the hands of a single martial artist, it is truly a waste. Army, this is a weapon with the imprint of an army. How can there be such a weapon in the world? What kind of army would be willing to use their deaths to forge such a terrifying weapon? Xian's face was pale white, his body trembling even more. His legs were trembling, his fingers were trembling, his lips were trembling, only his eyes were staring straight at the bronze sword, as though he did not hear Xiaoman's words. To be able to encounter such a powerful army-killing technique, Tang Tian's originally high fighting intent became even more intense. He placed his attention on himself. What a strange feeling! It is completely different from the complete state of the awakened god armor. Tang Tian felt as though his body was on fire, but his mind was like a block of ice. Why do I want to cry? Tang Tian looked as though he was possessed. The low humming of the sword caused his entire body to tremble uncontrollably. The unforgettable scene that he had seen in the ocean of peace surfaced in his mind. That was the strongest martial artist he had ever met. Qiu Tianqing's veins were popping out. He roared out with all his might. On the trading ship, Xian stared blankly at the cracked bronze sword in Tang Tian's hand, his body trembling slightly. What made his heart palpitate even more was the solemn and stirring aura. It was as though he had seen countless figures pouncing towards the enemy, not seeking to kill the enemy, but to perish together. So it was like that? What happened in the ocean of peace? Seniors, brothers, Why don't you rest in peace? What? The raindrops fell on Tang Tian's body, but he did not feel anything. The autumn wind and rain became the best background for him, adding to the solemn and stirring feeling. Why am I so angry? Resonance. The middle-aged man watching from afar had a change in expression. He knew that Qiu Tianqing was going to risk his life. His body was covered in cracks, as though he was a porcelain man that had been smashed and then pieced back together. A cracked bronze sword appeared in Tang Tian's hands. His eyes suddenly turned bronze, and a faint cross imprint could be seen. This sound, the resonance of the light sword whale song, was the resonance of energy, while the autumn wind offense was a step further. Through the resonance of energy, it would cause the undulations of law threads to join the resonance. The energy was like the seawater, while the law threads were like the seaweeds at the bottom of the sea. Generally speaking, the surface of the sea would be turbulent, while the bottom of the sea would be peaceful. He laughed at himself. Seems like I was truly intimidated by the enemy, and actually subconsciously thought that the autumn wind offense is unable to pose a threat to the enemy. The autumn offense intent can actually be used like that. Xian's fists were clenched so tightly that they turned white. He unknowingly lowered his head, his expression becoming sinister, and his entire body trembling even more violently. The raindrops that enveloped Tang Tian suddenly disappeared, as though there was an invisible hand that had gathered the raindrops. The raindrops converged into a torrent that surged into the Qiu Offense Institute. The dancing leaves did not move quickly, like a school of fish swimming leisurely in the flood, but they were quietly withering away. How can the autumn wind not have the autumn rain? Countless of thoughts flashed past in his mind, but Tang Tian's hands did not stop moving. Tang Tian's eyes lit up. This technique, autumn wind offense, was able to transform the qi in a single inch. It was extremely exquisite, and could be said to be breathtaking. In his eyes, the energy in the Qiu Offense Institute was one, and was filled with a withering and desolate qi. The battle that he had exchanged for 100 years of slumber had been repeating itself for the past 10,000 years, and at the same time, the phrase, after 100 years, we will fight side by side again. Qiu Tianqing's eyes flashed with a trace of seriousness. He who had entered his battle state threw all the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind, and his eyes became cold. The bewitching jade hand, the simple and broken bronze sword, created a huge contrast. It was the first time Tang Tian had encountered such an attack, and it was even an army-killing technique. But for some reason, he felt a sense of familiarity, as though he had seen it somewhere before. He knew that he had never seen such a breathtaking army-killing technique before. If he had seen it before, he would definitely not forget it. Tang Tian's body trembled. The roars from the ocean of peace resonated in his ears. The despair and unwillingness on the porcelain man's face flashed past his eyes. The rumbling fighting intent was like boiling lava, surging through every part of his body. Why did I disturb them? Why? Qiu Tianqing's heart finally calmed down. The autumn wind offense was as reassuring as ever. Why did I disturb them? That was the ocean of peace, the place where all of their comrades could rest in peace, regardless of how intense the battle was. It was the last piece of paradise in their hearts, and when their souls returned to the ocean of peace, they would be able to rest in peace forever. It was the last place in their hearts that they cared about, the last place they fought for. They could die, but their comrades could rest in peace forever. Qiu Tianqing threw away all of his thoughts, threw away all of his schemes. His focus was unprecedentedly focused. He was currently a pure military general, and in his eyes, there was only the battle in front of him. She had long sensed that something was amiss. Xian seemed to be immobilized the moment Tang Tian summoned the sword. She knew that although Xian was usually nonsensical and was a bit flowery, but his heart was extremely calm, confident and calm, and his mental state was much better than hers. Why? Xian's body was trembling. That's right, he had never trembled like this before. Even in the last battle, when he jumped out of the trenches and charged towards the enemy, he had never trembled like this, never trembled like this. Chapter 902. The sky seemed to have darkened. Loneliness pervaded the air. Beneath Tang Tian's feet, light sparkled. The black ocean stretched endlessly. It was the ocean of peace. When Tang Tian raised his sword and shouted, "Without knowing if our army is alive or dead, how can we rest in peace?" The undying sword's buzzing resonated through the sky. The clouds in the sky were all shattered. The energy in the world was stirred, surging towards Tang Tian. How can we rest in peace? How can we rest in peace? Without knowing if our army is alive or dead, how can we rest in peace? That's right, I am truly too stupid. Even if they are in the ocean of peace, they will not be honest people, and they have so many people. Bang bang bang. His Qiu offense army had already completed their preparations. Qiu Tianqing's eyes were blazing with fighting intent, his mouth revealing a cold smile. The calm ocean of peace beneath his feet suddenly became restless. The waves became stronger and stronger. Qiu Tianqing did not expect the sword light to explode, and was shocked. A large hole was formed in the autumn mist where the sword light exploded, but a few strands of mist floated over, causing the hole to disappear. But he did not plan to give up. No matter how powerful a sword is, it is still a sword. No matter how powerful a person is, he is still a person. He muttered. He gently pressed down on the sword body and waved it. Tang Tian stood on the ocean of peace. His body seemed to be burning, but his eyes had a complicated look in them. Can't let it go? What else can't you let go of? Qiu Tianqing was already prepared. He knew of the opponent's strength, but he did not think that he had no chance. He sighed in admiration at the sword's stubbornness. It was a true godly weapon. Its might and unimaginable sword technique caused Qiu Tianqing to be shocked. But, in any case, you guys can never win against me in cards. You guys know how good my memory is. Ever since he gained enlightenment on the awakened god armor, he was used to being calm during battles. But the moment the sword cry came out, all of his calmness was thrown to the back of his mind, and an indescribable excitement surged through his entire body. The Qiu offense army's ultimate killing technique. The sword lights that soared from the ocean of peace also seemed to be endless. Tang Tian had never seen such an army, he had never seen such a soul, he had never seen such conviction. You guys, still the same as before. Are you guys so diligent in ruining the ocean of peace? He's been dead for so long, yet he's still so carefree? How can we rest in peace? How can we rest in peace? Alright, they were just that stupid and he was worried about them. It seemed like he was even more stupid, Woo woo woo, don't let me run into you guys, or else I'll help you guys recall the past, Sob sob sob. The loneliness and sorrow that was as vast as the ocean of peace filled Tang Tian's heart and soul, but at the same time, there was a determination that was even vaster than the ocean of peace, burning Tang Tian's heart and soul. A bitter smile spread across his face. He couldn't help but laugh. He laughed so hard that he bent over and squatted on the ground. What an honor it was to be able to fight side by side with such conviction. The fragments of the sword gleam's explosion were not affected by the airflow at all. They scattered like colorful snowflakes. I'm just as stupid. I've also been dead for a long time. Do you guys know how afraid I've been for the past 10,000 years? How afraid I was of forgetting who I am, of forgetting the army, of forgetting all of you, how afraid I would not remember you if I met you. Do you guys know how hard it is for a lone ghost to live alone for 10,000 years? Do you guys know how boring it is to bring a bunch of skeletons to kill for 10,000 years? To the point of talking to myself, to the point of memorizing all the old and useless things. Do you guys know that I even remember how many toilet papers you guys used and how many left in right hands? As he laughed, he started to cry. His cries became louder and louder. He squatted on the ground and bawled, letting his mucus and snot flow freely. The Qiu Offense Institute beneath his feet was dyed with autumn frost, as though it was covered with a thin layer of snow. A faint mist rose from the ground. The Qiu Offense Institute was filled with mist, as though it was another world. The energy barrier was removed, and the mist climbed up the walls of the Qiu Offense Institute and slowly spread out like a climbing gray rose or a white mist wall. In a moment, the walls of the Qiu Offense Institute were completely enveloped by the mist. He laughed as he punched the ground, and as he laughed, tears flowed down his cheeks. Xian felt that he was truly stupid, The ones who are going to cry should be the bunch of fools, to give up such a good life. The ocean of peace is such a good place. How much effort did we put in to succeed, but these fools do not know how to cherish it. The sword light that tore through the horizon shone on Xian's youthful face, shining on his aged pupils, causing him to laugh bitterly with self-ridicule. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys giving up? Giving up the peace that we worked so hard to obtain? Have you guys forgotten? For the sake of the ocean of peace, how much have we paid, how difficult it was? Have you guys forgotten? Fighting is the mission of the living, and all of you just need to rest in peace? The sword light suddenly exploded, and the scattered light auras scattered all over the ocean of peace like fireworks. Time is like a river, and will always slowly wash away the heat of blood. No need for protection, eternal peace. Tang Tian was like a gigantic whirlpool, one after another. Light rays shot out from all directions, bringing with them soul-stirring screeches. It truly suits the personalities of you fools. He heard the millions of generals roaring out in unwillingness. He heard the heroics of moths flying into flames. He heard a general with a face full of cracks, facing the disappointment and defeat in his heart, towards the endless silent soldiers, towards the lonely and dark ocean of peace, towards the 100 years of slumber and the countless years of failure, towards the army that he deeply loved but did not know if it still existed. He shouted out loudly, rousing the morale, saying that we will meet again in 100 years, saying that we will fight side by side in 100 years. In the restless ocean of peace, one after another, illusory figures slowly floated out from the surface of the ocean. The illusory figures were extremely blurry, like mist and shadows, but one could faintly see that they were human figures. He raised his head, as though he was looking at the sky. He leapt into the air, transforming into a sword light that soared into the sky. The sword hiss was low and powerful. It was fervent and tragic, shooting towards the Chiu Offense Institute. Sword auras fell like rain. They continued to strike the mist around the Chiu Offense Institute. When Tang Tian raised the undying sword up high, the low sword hiss was like a whirlwind that revolved around him, replying to him. The explosion seemed to be the prelude to a banquet. The mist around the Chiu Offense Institute seemed to be endless. The sword lights outside the window were like rain, like the light in the past, illuminating Xen 10,000 years later. The sound of the energy beams tearing through the air became even more ear-piercing, while the undying sword's hiss became even more solemn and tragic. They mixed together, causing Tang Tian's body to tremble uncontrollably. Woo woo woo, I miss all of you. One of the shattered auras did not fall into the ocean, but landed on the ground, and he personally witnessed how it silently created a 200 m wide crater that was so deep that he could not see the bottom. The sacred Saint Galaxy had long proven that an army was the strongest. I still remember all of you, I still remember all of you. It's not that I miss all of you, it's not that I can't bear to part with all of you. I'm just afraid of being embarrassed, I'm just afraid of being embarrassed. It's true. They were souls that had been shattered over 100 times in the past 10,000 years, all because of a strand of hope that was so dim that it was about to melt into the darkness. They had given up on peace, they had endured 100 years of loneliness, in exchange for a chance that had almost no hope of victory. They had ignited all of their light and heat, and then were shattered. They silently licked the wounds that covered their entire bodies, and slept in the darkness, waiting for the awakening after 100 years. He held the undying sword vertically in front of his chest. The words engraved on the sword body were reflected in his eyes. The mist around the Chiu Offense Institute surged endlessly, as though there was a terrifying monster inside. Every time a sword aura exploded, a large hole would be blasted open in the mist. But in the blink of an eye, the hole that was blasted open would once again be occupied by the mist. There is no need for protection, eternal peace. The 10,000 years of darkness, despair, and bitter struggle were the smoke that they could not penetrate. This tragic scene that was repeated time and time again had nothing to do with victory, but the Southern Cross Army's war flag that had always fluttered in their hearts. He calmed down. The sword auras looked terrifying, but their might was only slightly stronger than ordinary warship weapons. If it was the energy barrier from before, They would not be able to hold on for long, but to shake the autumn frost cold ground. The intensity of the attack was not enough. The old general was no longer brave. He did not speak of victory, he did not speak of success, he only spoke of fighting side by side in 100 years. The old general was no longer brave, they were silent, they were disappointed, and only woke up after 100 years, leaping out from the ocean of peace, striking into the sky, shouting that the life and death of the army was unknown. How can we rest in peace and only shatter? Xiao Man wanted to step forward, but Chia pulled her back and shook his head slightly. Xiao Man bit her lips tightly, the ferocious look in her eyes had disappeared. Bang bang bang. When the tragic sword auras brought forth sharp whistles and dazzling splendor, they struck onto the mist outside the walls of the Chiu Offense Institute. Do you guys know how to waste the quota? Do you guys know how to waste the blood and sweat of the past? One after another, images transformed into sword auras that soared into the sky. Autumn frost cold ground. Bang. Tang Tian's roar reverberated in the air, the gloomy sword hums responded to him, following his roar, following his agitation, following his roar, following his roar, following his roar, following his roar. It was as though they were spitting out all the unwillingness and anger that had accumulated for 10,000 years, as though they were trying to smooth out their broken faces, as though they were trying to shatter their own resting place. How can I rest in peace? How can I rest in peace? All of you idiots are not resting in peace. In truth, you just want to play cards every day, right? All of you that were abused by me in the past, hurry up and come out. Don't think that I do not remember all of you. Even without me, an expert that can kill everyone on the table, all of you were able to maintain your dignity on the table, but in the end, all of you were unable to rest in peace, right? If it was said that he could understand the attacks of the Chiu Offense army, but he could not understand the attacks of the masked man at all. That's right, he could not understand them at all. The bewitching and chilling hand, in the end even the autumn wind offense, was unable to contend against it. That was something he had never heard of before. Where did this strange black sea come from? Is it an illusion? And the sword light that flew out from the sea caused him to be even more dumbstruck. The middle-aged man was shocked. It was just a shattered aura. Looking at the snowflake-like shattered aura, his heart could not help but jump. It could completely erase the entire city. Seeing the whistling sword light, the sorrowful and tragic sword light caused him to be moved, but so what? As though their hearts were linked, Tang Tian suddenly took a step forward, his clothes fluttering without any wind, the waves beneath his feet exploded, but he did not feel anything. His gaze was extremely focused. He flipped his wrist and thrusted out the undying sword. Who exactly is he? He squatted on the ground, slapping the floor. Like a lunatic, he would cry bitterly and laugh foolishly. Tang Tian was extremely excited. The middle-aged man who was spectating from afar had a pale face. The battle in front of him had completely toppled everything he knew. Autumn wind offense was the killing technique of the Chiu Offense army. He naturally recognized it, but what was the strange mist in front of him? Could this be the true killing technique of the Chiu Offense army? Chapter 903. The middle-aged man put away his petty thoughts, and a fierce look flashed in his eyes as he ordered the guards beside him in a low voice. Even in the Sacred Saint region, a pseudo-law domain was something that only the strongest powerhouses could possess, but he actually saw it in the sacred region. Suddenly, there was a commotion among the elders. News came from inside that Sophie had left the Twilight Palace and was heading towards the Radiant Palace. The clan elders tensed up. Once the great clan elder spoke, Temple's attitude and stance would be set in stone. Sophie's emotions gradually calmed down, her eyes were red, and she apologized to the great clan elder. This subordinate did not receive any orders, and ordered an attack on the Chiu family, causing a bad influence. Please punish me, clan elder. So, from the bottom of his heart, he disapproved of the Sacred Saint Galaxy's military army. When Sophie stepped into the sacred hall, she was greeted by the complicated gazes of the elders. She knew what these people were thinking, but she didn't care at all. What did their lives have to do with her? Just like how Ji saw that there was an army in the Sacred Saint Galaxy that had gained enlightenment on a quasi-law domain, Qiu Tianqing had the same feeling. In the Sacred Saint Galaxy where armies ruled, seeing a person with a fighting strength comparable to a warship was no different from seeing a ghost. Sophie walked to the door of the Light Palace and knelt down with a plop. Her shoulders twitched and her tears flowed uncontrollably. She lay on the ground and her tears fell to the ground. Her sorrow did not diminish in the slightest. Sophie nodded and changed direction, heading towards the Twilight Palace. That's right, the honorable martial banner of knights is back. I can sleep more peacefully now. What move was this? After a full 5 minutes, the opponent's sword light still showed no signs of weakening. In truth, ever since he entered the Sacred Saint Galaxy, he looked down on the armies and military generals of the Sacred Saint Galaxy. None of the people here had comprehended laws. Laws and energy were two completely different levels of power. Tang Tian quickly realized that he had made a mistake in his judgment. Previously, Qiu Tianqing suspected that they were disguised as the Banner of Knights, but now, he felt that even if they were not from the Banner of Knights, they were definitely from Temple. Qiu Tianqing firmly believed that if there was a place that could nurture monsters that could rival warships, it would definitely be Temple. Even in Sin Domain, there was only one person with a domain law domain, and Duke who relied on that to ascend to the throne, becoming the publicly acknowledged #1 in Sin Domain. Looking at her disappearing figure, the elders started to discuss amongst themselves. Ji could hardly believe his eyes. What kind of joke was this? Quasi-law domain. What are you afraid of? The Honorable Martial Knight Regiment has returned. If they dare to act recklessly, they will be courting death. The holy temple buzzed and trembled. Laws. She stood there, staring at the gate like a statue, and said nothing. This was the reason why it was different from other army killing techniques. Autumn Frost Cold Ground contained the laws of autumn. In a certain sense, Autumn Frost Cold Ground had already surpassed the limits of an army killing technique. Why is he being punished? A low and powerful voice rang out from within the blazing holy flames. The great clan elder was filled with indescribable rage. Those fellows thought I would compromise? They were wrong. I would rather the sanctum collapse than compromise with them. How could a single person maintain such a high attack intensity? Quasi-law domain. But the army that he looked down on was actually able to gain enlightenment on laws, and was even able to form a space similar to a law domain. How could he not feel as though he had seen a ghost? This thought went on for 10 years. When Sophie massacred the Qiu family's encampment, the great clan elder did not express any opinion, and even when Sacred Son Charles was assassinated, the great clan elder did not say a word. Is she still at the entrance of the Twilight Palace? It's already been 2 hours. She acted as though she did not see the clan elders, holding onto the saber by her waist. Without saying a word, she slowly walked deeper into temple. Halfway there, she suddenly spoke. Which palace was His Highness assassinated at? That was a warship-grade attack. Regardless of whether it was the power of the sword light or the frequency of the attack, they were all warship-grade. And it was a gold-grade warship-grade. When Qiu Tianqing created the Autumn Wind Offense, he had always been thinking about how to create an army-killing technique that was stronger than the Autumn Wind Offense. Warships were powerful and had sturdy defenses, but there were many limitations to their usage, for example the size of the estuary or the lack of flexibility in small battlefields. Warships were usually used in the vast sea of energy. But just like how Tang Tian underestimated the Autumn Frost Cold Ground, Qiu Tianqing similarly underestimated the Undying Sword. The torrential sword light seemed to be endless, and Qiu Tianqing's initially calm expression gradually became serious. They knew that the great clan elder was waiting for Sophie's return. What the hell? That is the ultimate weapon. A quick-witted clan elder immediately replied, "It's the Twilight Palace." A sudden inspiration gave him an epiphany. But that was just the beginning. An army-killing technique was never something that a military general could create alone. After spending 5 years, he and his subordinates continued to perfect it, and finally created the strongest killing technique, Autumn Frost Cold Ground. Come on, Do you really think that the Chiu family is a pushover? Inside temple, the clan elders were in groups of 3 to 5, discussing softly. Their gazes would occasionally look into the depths of temple. She had been here countless of times. It was her home, the place she was most familiar with the people she was most familiar with. The door was still majestic, the white light was still dense, but the people she was most familiar with could no longer be seen. An intense fear filled his heart. They were like arrows that had been shot and could no longer turn back. They were too familiar with Temple's style. Even if they were to appease them now, once the situation stabilized, it would be the time to settle the scores, and none of them would be able to escape. Upon activating the autumn frost cold ground, the place where the army would activate the laws of autumn and form a unique autumn territory. The autumn territory was independent and was able to continuously absorb energy. The autumn frost would turn into mist, and it could be said to be endless and endless. Sigh. You can't blame her. She had such a deep relationship with Sacred Son Charles. Upon hearing the news of Sacred Son Charles being assassinated, how could she not lose control? It is because the prestigious families are too arrogant, too daring. We should have taken care of them earlier. We are raising a tiger that will invite calamity. Be sad, since the one who died was Sacred Son Charles. Temple wants to destroy the Chiu family. Similar discussions sounded out from time to time, but none of the clan elders left. They stayed in Temple's largest plaza, waiting for the final news. Not only did they recognize Tang Tian, there was another person, and that was Ji Zhe. The God Armor Army's qualifications were all ordinary, including Fu Zhengji. Although he was strong, he was older. Out of all of them, the only one who could be called a genius was Ji Zhe. Shu, be careful of your words. Be careful of the walls. They are a bunch of lunatics. They even dare to assassinate Sacred Son Charles. Why would they place us in their eyes? Because the autumn frost cold ground was different from all the previous army killing techniques. The great clan elder's palm that was enveloped by the golden holy flames did not have any burning sensation, but only the power to calm his heart. Compared to individual martial techniques, army killing techniques were much more complicated. It was even more difficult for soldiers to gain enlightenment on laws, and the requirements for killing techniques were even harsher, but as long as they succeeded, the might would be unimaginable. If he said to fight, the entire temple would disregard everything and fight. No matter how much money they spent, no matter how many people died, temple would continue to fight. If the great clan elder said to make peace, it meant that no matter how intense the battle was, no matter how deep the hatred was, temple would still reconcile with the other party. Sophie's return had alarmed all the clan elders. Qiu Tianqing was extremely calm at the start, although the other party's attacks were ferocious, but their autumn frost cold ground was not made of paper. He was extremely confident in the autumn frost cold ground, even though it was the first time he was using it after it was created. If an army was able to unleash a warship-grade attack without a warship, they would be considered elites. As for the person, wouldn't that be a human-shaped warship? How can there be such a person in the world? The great clan elder sighed and caressed Sophie's head. Sophie stood outside the Twilight Palace. For such a serious matter to happen in the Twilight Palace, the inside and outside had long been searched countless of times, even the ground had been dug up. It was a complete mess. I want to let them know how much they overestimate themselves. 15 years of sharpening a sword. The laws contained in the autumn frost cold ground were not in the form of law threads, but law surfaces. It was not even an ordinary law surface. The autumn laws in the space already possessed the embryonic form of a law domain. For example, it could repair itself, which was the most common characteristic of a law domain. Before he had gotten used to using laws to control energy, he was extremely weak. However, once he broke through this barrier, his strength would skyrocket overnight. If we were to say that there was a layer of paper between laws and energy, then the paper from laws to energy would be extremely thin, while the paper from energy to laws would be extremely thick. But a human-shaped warship is too terrifying. It was not affected by the terrain and possessed unparalleled agility. It was able to attack stealthily, and the might of its attacks was comparable to a warship. She is too rash to actually massacre the Chiu family's encampment. Isn't that just making the conflict even more intense? If the Qiu family was truly destroyed by Temple, then with Temple's might, how many people would dare to face them head-on? At that time, the prestigious family's alliance would be destroyed. At the start, Ji Zhe looked at the Qiu Offense Institute with disdain and contempt, but when the mist blocked the sword light, his face became serious. But very quickly, the shock on his face became more and more, until it became as though he had seen a ghost. It was not only the clan elders who were nervous, all the prestigious families who received the news were also nervous. The great clan elder was the highest existence in Temple. The guard's face became serious, he nodded his head continuously, then turned and left. It's been hard on you, child. If you want to cry, cry out loud, don't keep it in your heart. A warm voice came out from above her head, causing her to become even more upset, and she started to sob silently. The middle-aged man who was watching from afar had a change in expression. He had the same thoughts as Qiu Tianqing. A powerful martial artist that can match up to a warship is definitely Temple's final trump card. To the majority of armies, the difference in fighting strength with a warship and without one was like heaven and earth. She stood quietly outside the door and did not enter. Luckily for her, the autumn frost cold ground was operating smoothly, allowing her to heave a sigh of relief. However, the anger in his heart continued to soar. Sophie stood at the entrance of Temple. Inside the majestic door, the dense radiant energy released a white holy light, as though it was another world. Chapter 904. Qiu Tianqing hesitated. He understood the meaning behind the other party's words. The other party's meaning was clear. At such a crucial time, they did not want to complicate matters, and even if there were any disputes, they had to be decisive. Xiao Man immediately felt uncomfortable and asked, "Miss, what's with your expression?" On the trading ship, Xiao Man was slightly annoyed. Isn't he usually very intelligent? Why did he expose himself? Chie, who had been standing there like a goddess of war, suddenly blushed. She glared at Xiao Man, but did not say a word. Tang Tian did not have any distracting thoughts in his mind. He did not think much about it. It was just an instinctive action. The dazzling shattered light auras lit up the ocean of peace. The beauty of death was extremely tranquil. For some reason, everyone held their breaths, as though they were afraid of breaking the tranquility. General Hua, who was in the air, did not believe them, and sneered, "As expected, you will not shed tears until you see the coffin. You are still not giving up, and still want to act mysterious. You are seeking death." Although Axen did not look any different from usual, but Chie could clearly feel his seriousness and desire. Xian and Xiao Man were Chie's left and right arms, and she understood the two of them extremely well. Xiao Man loved to fight, but Axen did not have any interest or passion in fighting. If he could not fight, he would not. If he could spend 10 minutes to settle a battle, he would not spend 20. The torrential sword lights continued for 10 minutes, and when the last sword light shattered, the entire world seemed to have quietened down. Holy flames, he did not sense any holy flame aura. If the other party was the honorable martial banner of knights, it was impossible. The holy flame was the source of power for any honorable martial banner of knights, and in a high-intensity battle, it could not be faked. General Qiu. The leader of the group bowed to Qiu Tianqing. Qiu Tianqing bowed slightly. "I never thought that such a small matter would actually alarm General Hua. But this battle concerns my Qiu family's personal grudge. I hope that General will not interfere." In the past, he was defeated and captured by Jie Shangguan, which was why he chose to join her, but he was not willing to do so. Although he admired Jie Shangguan's standard of commanding, it was not enough for him to pledge his loyalty. He just did not want to disappear from the world. His mind was filled with nonsensical thoughts, but his heart was very calm. Axen felt a little sad when he thought about how the Bustu woman had seen him like this today. I'm finished. I'm going to be laughed at by this girl. I don't know when I'll be able to regain my impression." The obsession of his former comrade-in-arms was right in front of him. These fellows had wasted the precious ocean of peace, causing him to want to beat them up. "Thank you, miss." Axine thanked Chie solemnly. Who's so free? He was too busy with the matters of this life, and even this battle had not ended yet. That was why it was very common for him to not put in any effort, and compared to Xiao Ran, he was not qualified at all. However, to his surprise, Xia had never been dissatisfied with him because of this. The soldiers of this army were all wearing angry red capes and exquisite and gorgeous golden armors. All of them had cold and indifferent expressions, and with one look, one could tell that they were veterans of hundreds of battles. The general in the lead was tall and sturdy, with a square face and thick eyebrows. His most eye-catching feature was his fiery red hair. He was not lonely at all, and he did not envy others at all. Furthermore, since when did a small family at the bottom of the hierarchy actually have such a powerful army? Who said we were impersonating the banner of knights? Xen bowed to Tang Tian seriously and spoke respectfully. I ask young master to hold the line for this subordinate. A look of joy flashed past Xiao Ran's eyes, but she snorted, we were just lucky. At the start, he suspected that they were the banner of knights. The enmity between the two parties was clear, and Sophie's intention to use the Chiu family as an example was clear, which caused his thoughts to go into the wrong direction. The sword was filled with intense emotions. It did not belong to him, but to Xen, so Tang Tian felt that it should be given to Xen, and that the undying sword would be happy. Xen leisurely strolled in the air with a look of indifference. We are the Iron Mask army of the Mace Field Trading's family. There is no need for me to say more about the enmity between the Chiu family and my Mace Field Trading's family. Could it be that sire intends to intervene? Only Chiu Tianqing's pupils constricted. He sensed danger. Only Chiu Tianqing's eyes constricted. He sensed danger. His companions were Bing, Crane, Ling Su, Big Brother Jing Hao, Sai Lei, Pai Pa, Ding Ding. Without saying a word, he tossed the undying sword to Xen. From now on, it is yours. Since when did a small prestigious family dare to challenge a first-rate prestigious family? Chiu Tianqing and General Huo were both startled. Xie glanced at Xiao Ran and giggled, but did not say a word. Chiu Tianqing knew that they were plotting something big. Furthermore, Tang Tian thought about Xen and Bing's relationship, and thought about his identity as a member of the Southern Cross Army, and was enlightened. That's right, the sword contains the aura of Xen's comrades in arms. But upon exchanging blows, he knew that the other party was not the banner of knights. It completely toppled their common sense. It was too absurd. Xen laughed out loud. Just as he was about to express his lofty aspirations, he was interrupted by Xiao Ran. If you want to go, hurry up and go. What are you dawdling for? Xia Shanghai Guan did not say a word, but looked at Xen seriously. General Hu spoke out. The holy bell has sounded. It is time for us to achieve our goals, and the Chiu family is the pillar of our honorable martial continent. How can we be delayed by these thieves and thieves? The majority of Tang Tian's emotions towards the undying sword were because of the obsession. He was extremely excited, honored and respected the seniors, but he knew that the legends were theirs, the beliefs were theirs, the emotions also belonged to them, belonged to the Southern Cross Army. He glanced at Tang Tian, his mouth revealing a sneer. He nodded his head. General, be careful, they are not the banner of knights. Be it being moved, be it sadness, be it yearning, be it hope, they were all for themselves, not to move others, not to let others know. Everything was for themselves, for the true desire in their hearts. Xen's body trembled. He grabbed the undying sword in a flurry. Even though it was just a moment ago, everyone could tell that the sword was not ordinary. Tang Tian actually gave him the sword. They had thought of all sorts of possibilities, but they had never thought of the Mace Field Trading's family. A low-ranking prestigious family ran to a high-ranking prestigious family and said that they had enmity. The unease in Chiu Tianqing's heart became even more intense. Thinking about that, he felt slightly embarrassed. Who knew that when he requested to fight, Xie would agree so straightforwardly? Xen knew that regardless of the reason, just the understanding was extremely hard to come by. Bang! Xie was decisive and independent. She had her own opinions, and did not care about him at all. In the sky 300 m away from Tang Tian, there was a sudden explosion. The sky was filled with fiery snakes. When the fiery light dissipated, the army appeared out of thin air, revealing their true appearance. It was the first time they had requested to fight. Unknowingly, a spirit general had appeared not far from Tang Tian. His legend was Ursa Major Constellation, Three Spirit City, Southern Alliance, and godlike young lad. Axen looked at Tang Tian deeply. Although Tang Tian's face was covered with a mask, his expression could not be seen, but his eyes were as clear as water. An old monster that had lived for over 10,000 years, with his endless sorrow. If Bing and Screw were to know about it, who knew how they would digest it? Xian's face was brimming with a bright smile, with a hint of cynicism and anticipation, without a trace of sorrow. An army that was like a fiery cloud, blazing down from the horizon. His gratitude was sincere and sincere. We have already endured for 10,000 years, but we still haven't found the answer. Dying is a loss. General Hua's gaze turned cold. He said indifferently, impersonating the banner of knights, your crimes are even more serious. Today, even Temple will not be able to save you. He bowed respectfully to Chia. This subordinate requests to fight. Just at that moment, a chuckle suddenly sounded out in the tense battlefield. The entire place could hear it. Other than Chia and Xiaoman, no one else knew that on the trading ship not far away, there was an old young lad who was sobbing. Even if they knew, they might not be able to understand. 10,000 years was too long, long enough for the world to change, long enough for the people to change, long enough for the oath to be destroyed. Inside the cabin, Axen wiped his tears and stood up, as though nothing had happened. Suddenly, a roar thundered out from afar. In the Saint Continent, you actually dare to violate the Holy Bell's ban and attack the prestigious Chiu family. Why are you acting so sneakily? Why are you not surrendering? With that said, he stood up, wielding the undying sword. He stepped onto the ocean of peace. Chia blinked her eyes. Make a guess. Thinking about Xian's wailing appearance, Chia thought for a moment, then replied without hesitation, all right. How would the busted-chested girl understand such delicate emotions? He muttered in his heart. Aya, how am I going to raise my head in front of her in the future? This is a little troublesome. I want to create my own legend. I want to write down my own beliefs. From the start, he has always been like that. Even though he had inherited many things from the Southern Cross Army, he had never felt that he was living for the sake of reviving the Southern Cross Army. Chia's beautiful eyes flickered with light. She chuckled. I feel that he has handled it well. Since we cannot pretend to be the banner of knights, then using the name of Macefield Tradings is the most suitable. Xian's mind truly works fast. Xiao Ran always finds trouble with me. That should be the reason. Unlike him, Xiao Ran was loyal and devoted to Chia. Xiao Ran's face turned cold. She snorted. If you throw our face in front of young master, you can just slit your own throat. The change in aura was extremely subtle. It was obviously a peaceful scene, but for some reason, the sense of danger in Qiu Tianqing's heart did not decrease, but instead became more intense. Qiu Tianqing knew that something was amiss. His gaze was focused and vigilant, but he did not discover anything. The ocean of peace was calm and tranquil, without any ripples. It was like a black mirror. Macefield Tradings? Axen was not afraid. He bowed to Tang Tian. Young master, I wonder if you can hand the sword and the battle to this subordinate? Tang Tian was startled. He never thought that Qiu Tianqing would actually be able to sense that they were not the banner of knights. That meant that their plan to disguise as the banner of knights and fish in troubled waters had been foiled. Xiao Ran's face was filled with black lines. Xian's laughter stopped abruptly. It was stuck in his throat. Chapter 905. Qiu Tianqing's eyes surged with killing intent. The 5 great generals were powerful, but he never felt that he was inferior to them. For the 5 great generals to have such a reputation, it was all because of Temple. No one knew that the 5 great generals were his imaginary enemies. But it was a pity that the 5 great generals were stationed outside, and he did not have the chance to fight them. The figures seemed to have congealed slightly, and even the red cracks seemed to have become even more vibrant. The powerful voice resonated in the ocean of peace. This is your 10,000 years. His gaze swept across each of the phantoms. Their faces were like fog. He couldn't call out their names, but he knew it was them. The wounds that looked like burning red wires had covered every corner of their bodies, and not a single part of their bodies was intact. Although he did not know which army they came from, but any general was definitely not a small matter, and there was no luck involved. Their position did not represent their strength, but their military rank did. If they can't even handle a low-level prestigious family, how can they be considered as a top-notch prestigious family? What was worse was that it would cause others to think that the Qiu family was just an empty shell, and at such a crucial moment, if everyone lost confidence in the Qiu family, it would undoubtedly be a huge blow to the Qiu family. That familiar aura, that familiar feeling, that familiar shout, that familiar roar, that's right, even after 10,000 years, it is still so familiar. That's right, after 10,000 years, we are still able to meet. Xie and Xiao Man who were on the trading ship were also stunned. General. Regardless of where or what army it is, they are existences that people look up to. But so what? He soared into the sky. Beside him, 5,000 gray figures soared. The sound of chains being blown by the wind could be heard, but no one could see the chains. But today, he had a general in front of him. After fighting with a nameless person for so long, he had not won, and most of the time he was suppressed, causing the prideful Qiu Tianqing to feel. But at that moment, the Hua family suddenly came, wanting to help. The soldiers of the Qiu offense army were covered in gray armors, with faint golden lines on them. Their faces were pale white, expressionless, with mist surging in their gray pupils. Each of them exuded a faint chill. Everything within 7 inches of their feet was covered in autumn frost, and their bodies were filled with killing intent. Following the rise of his sword, numerous illusory figures floated out from the ocean of peace. Qiu Tianqing did not speak any nonsense. He activated his qi, causing the Qiu Offense Institute's autumn laws to revolve. Like chains dragging on the ground, deep grooves suddenly appeared on the snow-like surface of the autumn frost, as if something had been dragged on it. Xian's hand that was holding the sword was trembling. Countless information flowed into his mind from the undying sword, and countless images flashed past. He finally knew what had happened. He finally knew what had happened in the Ocean of Peace in the past 10,000 years. He raised the undying sword and let out a long whistle. One careless move and the whole game would be lost. Xie and Xiao Ran were like sisters, and immediately noticed Xiao Ran's gloomy mood. She was extremely intelligent and immediately understood what was going on, and intentionally said, "I never thought that Xian would be so powerful in the past. I really couldn't tell. I asked him to be your assistant, yet he's still hiding his abilities. Use your Zamedeo to beat him up." Different from the shock of the others, Qiu Tianqing felt the danger even more directly. In the honorable martial continent, only the 5 great generals were generals. No one else had the qualifications. Xiao Ran looked at Xian in a daze. She was unable to connect the god of war in front of her with the usual sloppy and unscrupulous uncle that she would beat up. He raised his sword and bellowed, "The spirit of the soldier will not dissipate, the battlefield will last forever, the cross in my heart, the stars will not fall." The misty and illusory figures had dark red cracks all over their bodies. They looked like lines of blood that were extremely ghastly. They were like clay statues that were smashed and then pieced back together. They stood there stupefied and silent. Qiu Tianqing took a deep breath. The expression on his face became extremely sinister. "If I do not tear all of you to shreds today, I am not Qiu Tianqing." The Qiu Offense Institute's mist started to shrink, and the Qiu Offense Institute that was originally shrouded in mist once again revealed its true appearance. When everyone saw the Qiu Offense Institute clearly, they were all shocked. For some reason, Xiao Ran felt a sense of loss. For some reason, the previous Xian made her feel more relaxed and at ease. General rank, Xiao Ran had a deeper understanding of it. The Ophiuchus army in the past was the Southern Cross Army's mortal enemy. Xiao Ran's talent was not bad, but in the Ophiuchus army, she was only a captain that could lead 1,000 men. What was the concept of a general? "Come, let us fight." They were like gray clouds that floated towards Exen. All along, he had been living in the shadow of the 5 great generals, Qiu Suhua. But he had never given up. From autumn wind offense to autumn frost cold ground, he had walked step by step to where he was today. Xiao Ran was roused. That's right, no matter how powerful he is, so what if he's a general? If you don't listen to me, I'll still whip you. No matter how big the world is, young miss and young master are the biggest. Speaking of which, no wonder I feel that he is so easy to whip. A general is truly not ordinary, even the feeling is different. So he is a big figure. The Qiu family has a general, the talented Qiu Su Hua. General Hua, who was watching from afar, revealed a look of shock. What army is that, to actually have such terrifying might? He, Qiu Tianqing, had been through hundreds of battles, and was famous. Who did not know of him? Which one of them did not tremble with fear when facing a formidable enemy? Exin acted as though he did not see the changes in the Qiu Offense Institute. He gently caressed the sword blade, which was covered with terrifying cracks. The ocean of peace beneath his feet was extremely calm, and the stifling silence was extremely stifling. Since when can a random person look down on me? Although he had agreed to the Hua family's suggestion, Qiu Tianqing was still stifled with anger. When he saw that the enemy's general had left and sent a spirit general to fight him, he could not control his anger. Stepping into the air, everyone's eyes blurred, and Exin stepped into the ocean of peace. Exion's military rank is actually higher than Uncle Bing. It is too terrifying. He bit his lips tightly and opened his eyes wide, doing his best to prevent his tears from flowing. Millions of voices converged into one, like thunder exploding out. The sky changed color. He thought about the sound of the chains dragging across the ground. In Sin domain, law armors were not rare. On the contrary, it was the most common method to transform laws into armors. But no matter how common a method was, once one reached the quasi-law domain, it would become extremely rare. The golden patterns on their armors were forged from laws. Ji Zhe's eyes constricted. Law armors. A smile surfaced on his face, and the air around him started to move without any wind. His eyes lit up with a light aura that resembled the radiance of the full moon. The millions of spirits that had been silent the entire time suddenly made the same move. They all stepped on the surface of the sea at the same time. Bang, a loud sound came out, and the surface of the sea caved in by 10 m. The true test is here. All of the subordinates behind him felt their hearts tremble. They knew that their master was truly enraged. Exin felt as though a knife was slicing through him, but he revealed a smile. His entire body emitted an intense cold intent. He looked like a demon that had walked out from hell, but he was smiling. Ji Zhe had never seen so many soldiers in armor at the same time. But his eyes were much sharper than the rest. He could tell that the gray armors were not ordinary, and that there seemed to be a formless connection between them. All of the illusory figures trembled. They all raised their heads and looked at the undying sword. Previously, they were lifeless, but upon hearing those words, it was as though they had regained consciousness. Exion's entire body was covered in energy. His ordinary-looking face emitted a sharp aura that no one could look straight at. His expression was complicated, solemn, excited, emotional, reminiscing. His heart was filled with a myriad of emotions, but all of these emotions flashed past his eyes, and he regained his composure, becoming as calm as water. Tangdan was dumbstruck. General. Since young, Qiu Su Hua had always been his most direct competitor. And because Qiu Su Hua had defeated him, he obtained the opportunity to go to temple, and thus became one of the 5 great generals. Come out, everyone. His eyes were red, his expression solemn, his sword pointed to the sky. His expression was devout and disdainful, sincere and arrogant. He spoke word by word, like a heavy hammer striking the sky. It was the first time the Qiu offense army had taken the initiative to attack. The intense desire to fight made Qiu Tianqing not willing to defend. Tang Tian was extremely familiar with the military ranks of the Southern Cross Army, but, General. Tang Tian was shocked. A general was a military rank just below a marshal, and what was even more terrifying was the command of a general, a command of 200,000 men, was enough to launch a large-scale battle. Xiao Man hugged her Zanbato happily, the haze on her face swept away. The illusory figures stood straight like spears, their arms were like a forest. They bowed to Axin and replied, "Yes. Southern Cross Army General." Axin is actually a general. The fighting intent in his heart was unprecedentedly intense. To be able to fight against a general-level opponent, it was a rare opportunity. The rage in Qiu Tianqing's heart soared. Qiu Tianqing's expression was calm. He knew that it was a knot in his heart and had been haunting him for the past few years like a nightmare. If he could not break it, his future would be difficult to improve. And as long as he broke it, his future would be limitless. But after thinking about it, for the sake of the plan, Qiu Tianqing suppressed the rage in his heart and accepted the Hua family's suggestion. He had to admit, at the moment, dealing with Temple was the most important matter. Wartime Regulation 9, General XN of the Army has full authority to take over the entire army. All divisions of the army are to await orders. Qiu Tianqing did not want the Hua family's help at all. He had the confidence to destroy the despicable enemies. "I can't even deal with a group of nameless people, and still need the help of the Hua family. How can that be?" If it was truly the Mace Field Trading's family, then it would be a huge loss of face. It could be said that other than the commander, he was the second in command, and his authority was even higher than the vice commander, because the vice commander was usually in charge of logistics. "Since all of you are not willing to rest in peace, then let us fight together." General Hua's face changed. The previously lifeless illusory figures suddenly released a terrifying aura, as though they were alive. Chapter 906. When the gray shackles dropped down, Ji Zhe did not understand. But when the gray shackles transformed into a cage, with the appearance of the golden lines, he immediately understood and was overwhelmed with shock. Thus in everyone's eyes, the formation on the Ocean of Peace was like neatly arranged wooden blocks. Following Xian's instructions, it changed into a flowing rhythm. Far away, Bing, who was burying his head in front of the table, suddenly raised his head, his eyes revealing joy and disbelief. Inside the Honorable Marshal's roar, Screw, who was resting, suddenly opened his eyes. His dazed eyes suddenly became clear. In the Savage Continent, the commander who was fighting with Mu Zhixia's army suddenly trembled and raised his head. The fatigue on his face was swept away. His eyes were so sharp that they could pierce through the sky. He looked ahead and said, "Blow the horn." Qiu Tianqing's mouth revealed a sneer. When the horn was blown, the entire Ocean of Peace surged with a black light aura. The black light aura permeated into the illusory soldiers. And behind the horn-bearer, the illusory soldiers started to line up. As expected of a general-rank spirit general. So what if they are legendary armies? No matter how powerful they were when they were alive, they have been dead for so long. How much of their original killing intent can they retain? He raised his head to look at the sky, a smile surfaced on his face, and then he did something that no one expected. The Ocean of Peace was no longer a place of rest, but a battlefield. Xian's sleeves fluttered. He stood upright with his sword in front of him. It was as though he had returned to the era of war, as though he could see the smoke of war. Pa, left third unit, take 10 steps forward. Sigh. General Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. For a military general who was familiar with the art of war, he knew very well what this meant. Xian did not even look at the densely packed gray shackles that were quickly approaching him. He calmly adjusted his formation. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he could not help but exclaim out. The gray shackles went around the invisible wall. They were like a fence, surrounding Xian and his formation in the middle, while the other end of the shackles entered the Ocean of Peace. Tang Tian looked at General Hua. Seeing the hesitation in the other party's eyes, he retracted his gaze. If the enemy made a move, he would react immediately. He had never heard of the Hua family, but he did not care, thinking that they should be similar to the Qiu family. Although he was surprised, he was not afraid. The more battles one experienced, the more condensed their killing intent would be. The killing intent that these phantoms emitted was something that Qiu Tianqing had never seen before in other armies. This was an army that had gone through a chaotic world, and only the legendary armies in the chaotic world could possess such a congealed killing intent. No one knew about these changes. At this moment, everyone's gazes were attracted to the battlefield. Just as Ji Zhe was about to rush over, he caught a glimpse of Tang Tian from the corner of his eye. He stopped himself. The Southern Cross Army's foundation was truly unfathomable. The soldiers of the Qiu Offense Army opened up their arms, the gold lines on their bodies lit up. Like snakes, they swam along their bodies to their arms, and when they swam to their palms suddenly lit up with a gray light aura. 20 illusory figures flew out, and their low and deep horns resonated throughout the ocean of peace. For example, the mysterious being of the Southern Alliance was an outstanding commander. But now, he wanted to see how Xian fought. At this moment, Xian was exuding an unparalleled aura. Among the countless figures, he was extremely eye-catching, shining with boundless radiance. In the air, Qiu Tianqing's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He ordered, "Battle formation, clear autumn." The sound of chains moving in the sky converged into one, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. 10,000 gray chains descended from the sky, like 10,000 frantically growing gray vines. The scene was undoubtedly extremely oppressive. No one had ever seen such a spectacular and strange scene before, causing their scalps to go numb. This is the true killing technique. Is there something that I can't see? Damn it. Second to the right, float 7m higher. Xian floated at the highest point, the position of the sword tip. More accurately speaking, they were all attracted to Xian. Spirit generals were rare in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but they were in the Saint Continent, and all of them were top-notch families, which family did not have a spirit general, thus they were naturally knowledgeable. Ordinary spirit generals were unable to attract their attention, but they knew how powerful top-notch spirit generals were. Compared to General Hua's shock, Qiu Tianqing was much calmer. It was not that his mental state was better than General Hua, but because he was in a state of battle, his mental state was more focused and did not have as many distracting thoughts. The orderly formation was extremely stern. The killing intent seemed to have materialized and flowed wantonly. The ocean of peace beneath their feet seemed to have been frozen by the killing intent, causing the air above the ocean of peace to immediately slow down. General Hua's mouth was wide open as he stared blankly at the Qiu Offense Army in the sky. Qiu Tianqing is actually so powerful? He did not dare believe his own eyes. The top-notch prestigious families were all extremely rich and had a few military generals with the standard of famed generals, so there was nothing to fuss about. Traces of mist permeated out from the chains, and the withering aura started to spread out. Qiu Tianqing was extremely pleased. The outcome had been decided, and the enemy had no chance of turning the tables. For example, Sophie, who was a spirit general and commanded the banner of knights. The illusory soldiers' footsteps were silent, but the dense footsteps sounded out in everyone's hearts. La Domain. The 10,000 chains stretched taut like spears. Gold lines appeared on the chains, forming a gigantic cage. The reason why the Qiu family was able to do well in the circle was because of Qiu Su Hua's existence. Any great general was a powerful strategical grade existence. He suppressed his urge, and his gaze landed back on the ocean of peace. Autumn La Domain. Boss does not seem to be worried at all. His heart was moved. With Boss's eyesight, whatever I can see, Boss will definitely be able to see. But why isn't Boss anxious at all? The entire formation was like a vertical sword, the illusory soldiers stacked on top of each other, forming a thick and sturdy sword body. It was unknown how many times they had sighed, but at that moment, everyone had the same thought. Compared to the tens of thousands of chains descending from the sky, Xian's side was extremely calm. But with his smooth and flowing orders, the strict formation quickly changed. Every order would cause a change in the formation. The illusory soldiers' movements were simple and concise, just like Xian's orders. They were direct and efficient without any sloppiness. Qiu Tianqing's face changed. When Xian made his move, he did not feel anything. But now, the killing intent that these illusory soldiers were emitting made his heart palpitate. They are true elites that have been through hundreds of battles. Even the soldiers under me do not have such terrifying killing intent. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. No one could understand it. No one had ever set up such a strange battle formation before. It had to be known that there were many things to pay attention to in a formation, and it was not just a random formation. But everyone knew that it was impossible for him to make any preparations. Qiu Tianqing, who dared to challenge the 5 great generals, how could he be afraid of the remnant spirits of the legendary army that had died many years ago? Their footsteps were short and concentrated, and in a few seconds, they were all in formation. The gray chains descended from the sky above the formation, but there seemed to be an invisible wall that blocked the gray chains. Inside the chains, Axen had already completed his arrangements, causing everyone's eyes to tremble. They had never heard of a spirit general with the rank of general. Even the mysterious Bing of the Southern Alliance was definitely not a general. To these prestigious families, although a powerful spirit general like Sophie was good, but it was not as attractive as a commander-type spirit general. The Qiu family is so powerful? Time was merciless, the world was cruel, it could destroy their bodies and erase their memories, but the faith that was deeply imprinted in their souls would never be erased. After 10,000 years, they were still so passionate, how could people not feel respect for them? Middle 3 divisions, float 15 m. It's finally done. General Hua could also see it. He tried his best to recall, which legendary army in history has a general called Exin? What a strange formation. Ji Zhe, who was observing Tang Tian in the dark, suddenly caught a flash of excitement in Tang Tian's eyes, and immediately realized that he had missed something. Every single palm had a gray chain extending out. They were like frantically growing gray vines that continued to extend and grow. But what Tang Tian felt was powerful was not that, but the Southern Cross Army's spirit, brand and faith. Tang Tian had seen many powerhouses with deep foundations, for example Temple. But the Southern Cross Army's spirit, energy and spirit was something that no other family had. It was different from time laws. The aging of autumn laws was not caused by the flow of time, but directly caused one's life to enter the later stages, and that was the most terrifying aspect. Now that General Hua saw Qiu Tianqing, who was not inferior to Qiu Su Hua, how could he not be dumbstruck? That is completely illogical. For such a powerful spirit general to appear in front of them, how could they not be attracted to him? They were also filled with curiosity. How strong will a general-grade spirit general be? Qiu Tianqing's eyes flashed with a look of joy. He bellowed, "Open!" But no matter how powerful the Qiu family is, they already have Qiu Su Hua. No matter how high the standards of a top-notch prestigious family were, the 5 great generals were definitely top-notch, and were also what every family desired. The chains were already extremely close to the law domain. That feeling was as though no matter how much time had passed, when the Southern Cross Army's battle horn was blown, countless figures would crawl out from the ashes of history and gather under the banner of the past. Here and there arched up a little, there lowered a little, the formation in Xian's hands was constantly changing. Seeing that the figures were suddenly filled with vigor, Tang Tian felt that something was amiss. That should be their innate strength. Xian's first sentence was something that Tang Tian had heard before. At that time, when Tang Yi came out from the spirit chamber, he had shouted out those words. In this region, the autumn laws were greatly strengthened, and any life forms would quickly wither and die. If a living person was inside, they would age in an extremely short period of time. He was methodical, his expression was calm, his words were clear and forceful, direct and efficient, without any sloppiness. And what was surprising was that his orders were like flowing water, without any hesitation, as though he had long thought of a plan and was just repeating it. Chapter 907. That was the current situation. After understanding this, he made up his mind. Rumbling sounds rang out incessantly. In the depths of the sea, it sounded like mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. The cold aura enveloped the ocean of peace. The autumn frost appeared once again. This time it was even thicker than before. the thick autumn frost extended along the chains, causing the black color to retreat. The white autumn frost was like demonic moss growing on the surface of their bodies. Their vitality was withering at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a short while, 1/3 of their bodies were covered in autumn frost. When their bodies were completely covered in autumn frost, their lives had come to an end. Wind, coat and frost, autumn in my heart, how do I attract it? 3 blood and 3 withering, the autumn wind, the autumn rain, and the autumn frost. All living things are bleak and desolate, born but not flourishing, time passes early, never to return. He was stunned for a moment. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be Qiu Tianqing's autumn laws were truly not to be underestimated, especially with his high realm? It was something that no one could defend against. But if Qiu Tianqing had lived in the Xin domain before, he would definitely know that there were differences between different laws. Ji Zhe sucked in a breath of cold air from the bottom of his heart. This was the first time he had seen a law domain. Although it was not a complete law domain, it was infinitely close to a law domain, or it could be said that it already had many of the characteristics of a law domain. For example, the autumn frost was the result of the autumn law's corrosion. Any energy barrier in the sacred region was like air in front of it. Its corrosion was not on the energy level, which was the most terrifying part of it. The pitch-black seawater flowed past the ankles of the illusory soldier at the bottom. The red cracks on the soldier's bodies suddenly lit up. The seawater covered their calves, thighs, and waists. The pale and cold autumn frost was instantly melted by the seawater. A black figure walked out from the palace. This black figure was actually formed from the seawater of the Ocean of Peace. This black water man had faint red cracks all over his body, as though they were blood scars. He flew to the middle of the soldiers and with a pious expression, he chanted in a low voice, "The Qiu clan of the sacred region has existed for 10,000 years, passing down the torch, only I, Qiu." This was the legendary natural anomaly. Legend has it that when something extraordinary was born and collided, there would be a phenomenon. The so-called phenomenon was actually the resonance between the laws. However, it was extremely difficult to resonate with the laws of heaven and earth. In the comparatively easier Xin Domain Palace, Gu Shui had once gained enlightenment and caused a rainbow to appear in the sky. But in the sacred Saint Galaxy where energy was abundant, the difficulty of resonating with the laws of heaven and earth was extremely high, and it was many times higher than in the Xin domain, thus the phenomenon became a legend. His reputation was not inferior to Qiu Tianqing, but he was filled with admiration for Qiu Tianqing. The Qiu family is truly heaven-defying. They produced Qiu Suhua, and now they actually produced Qiu Tianqing. When the other soldiers saw this, they bit their tongues in unison and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto their own chains. As expected, the spread of the black color was greatly reduced. Sensing that their autumn laws were decreasing at an alarming rate, the formation's operations became extremely sluggish. Qiu Tianqing's face changed. How is this possible? The black seawater flowed along the chains, causing Qiu Tianqing to feel an immense pressure. The autumn law melted like snow, causing him to feel fear. At the moment, the one with the greatest pressure was undoubtedly Qiu Tianqing. Qiu Shuang, who was initially surging with aura, suddenly met with an invisible resistance. His expression changed. The autumn law had always been unstoppable, even energy barriers were unable to block it. What was this invisible resistance? Everyone's eyes were once again fixated on it. After following Ji Zhe and the rest for a period of time, Xian's understanding of laws had become much deeper. He had comprehended it in the past, but he had never managed to break through it, and with just a few pointers from Ji Zhe and the rest, many things became clear. Tang Tian praised his own foresight while opening his eyes wide. He was also filled with curiosity. After all, he did not bring out the undying sword, and it was such a shocking scene. What exactly is the black seawater? A natural phenomenon. Just at that moment, the calm ocean of peace suddenly underwent a change. The army immediately realized the profoundness of the ocean of death, and found countless of treasures and living souls to throw into the ocean of death, and constructed a resting souls palace in the eye of the ocean, called the Life Palace. Then, in other areas of the ocean of death, They constructed 12 side palaces, called the Death Palaces, to guard the ocean of death. Every Death Palace and Life Palace were connected by chains, with the nameplates of the soldiers who had sacrificed themselves. Clear Autumn Lock. This Autumn Law was already extremely close to a law domain, and anything higher than it could only be a law domain. A loud sound came out, and countless black waves suddenly exploded. Xian remained indifferent, as though he did not see anything. Life from death, withered bones give birth to lotuses. The aura of Clear Autumn Lock was not strong, but the killing intent was like a mist, completely enveloping the ocean of peace, and Xian could not avoid it. In a battle between armies, it was a taboo to have no space, as the lack of space often meant that both parties had to fight to the death. Initially, he had some expectations for the spirit general called Xian, as the rank of general gave him too much space to imagine. But when he saw Xian throw the undying sword into the ocean of peace, he was greatly disappointed. Inside the formation, the autumn law pervaded out, the gray mist quietly permeated into Xian and the illusory soldiers' bodies, causing white autumn frost to grow on their bodies. Withering, decaying, withering aura pervaded out from their bodies, making them look like a forest in autumn. Every sentence he chanted would cause the soldiers around him to emit a white mist, and in the blink of the eye, the white mist enveloped the entire Qiu offense army. His voice was not loud, but every sentence he chanted would cause him to become even whiter, and his aura to increase. The terrifying aura instantly caused Qiu Tianqing's fighting intent to crumble. No one knew what the ocean of peace was, and no one knew where it came from. They had all neglected the ocean of peace, the black and unfathomably deep ocean. Others might neglect the might of the ocean of peace, but Xian would not, because he had personally participated in it in the past. The Southern Cross Army was not proficient in laws, but they knew how miraculous it was to be reborn from death. They did not think of changing it, but continued to nourish it, and through the nurturing of time, it finally forged its supreme might. The ocean of peace seemed to have come alive. The pitch-black seawater extended along the chains, and wherever it passed, the bright gold patterns on the chains would immediately dim down, and the gray chains would be dyed black, making it look extremely strange. From the start, he had never planned to use the remnant spirits of the undying sword to fight to the death. He could not bear to do so. Although the remnant spirits were only left with their obsession, but because of that, he could not bear to do so. Their obsession was extremely deep, but it was still an obsession, and once it was damaged, they would completely disappear from the world, leaving nothing behind. He laughed at himself. That is normal. Macefield Tradings is just a small family. How can they have a true general spirit general? Bang! General Huo's expression became sluggish. He watched as the black seawater extended along the gray chains. He felt extremely uncomfortable. Just now, the 10,000 chains dropped down and grew frantically like vines. But now, the black seawater was also like vines, growing along the gray chains. Alright, so be it, at least I can still live. Everyone's face revealed looks of shock. The chains erupted with light auras. Xian's actions were unexpected and extremely simple. He released the undying sword in his hand. The undying sword fell into the ocean of peace, but did not cause any ripples. The Qiu offense army soldiers all had blood mist erupt from their feet, hearts, and eyebrows. As soon as the blood mist left their bodies, it turned white at a visible speed. Before it dissipated, the originally bright red blood mist had turned into a white mist and fused with the white mist in the air. Before anyone could react, another black waterman walked out, with the same faint traces of blood. Everyone held their breaths and opened their eyes wide, afraid of missing out on any details. Damn it! He could not bear to do it. This. The ocean of peace that continued to rise was like a terrifying and greedy beast, devouring everything it could. The ocean of peace was something that the Southern Cross Army had spent countless of time to create. It used to be a dead sea that was filled with death aura, and anyone who went near it would be corroded by the death aura. After that, the commander realized that the death aura was a law of death, and to the living it was a poison, but to the dead, it was a paradise. Could it be that the ocean of peace is a law domain? Ji Zhe was dumbstruck. Above the raging Black Sea, a regiment of white mist that resembled a cloud dropped down 10,000 chains. Axen did not raise his head to look at the sky, his gaze never left the ocean of peace beneath his feet. When he saw the bronze palace, he muttered, "Palace of Peace. I am truly sorry." General Hua shook his head, although Qiu Tianqing's clear autumn lock was not a true law domain, but it was extremely close, and he could not think of any methods to escape. Even if he was trapped inside, he would not be able to escape even if he had wings. He looked at Qiu Tianqing, his heart filled with emotions. General Hua's expression changed, he was overwhelmed with shock. He never thought that the battle would be so intense. The strength of both parties had far exceeded his expectations. All sorts of methods were unleashed, and for a moment, it was a huge blow to him. The white mist seeped into the chains, causing the 10,000 chains to revolve. Their clanking sounds resonated through the sky, like a torrent crashing down. The sound even overshadowed the ocean of peace. The battle formation was like a forest. The atmosphere was extremely tense. When he saw that there were no bronze plates on the red ropes, but emptiness, his face revealed a smile. Just at that moment, the doors of the bronze palace opened. The black seawater not only extended along the gray chains, the entire surface of the sea was rising, as though there was a monster awakening in the bottomless sea. His gaze landed on the surface of the sea that was continuously rising. The surging seawater was like a terrifying monster that was frantically devouring the illusory soldiers. But the illusory soldiers above did not move at all, as though they were ignoring the rising seawater. Qiu Tianqing's clear autumn lock was firmly in control of the situation. Axen was unable to dodge, and Qiu Tianqing's army was similarly unable to move. The strongest, most complicated, and most vast three fundamental laws were the three main pillars of the law system, and they were time, space, and life and death. One by one, the black watermen walked out of the bronze palace like a tide. What was surprising was that Xian and the rest did not make any movements to dodge. The illusory soldiers maintained their positions and movements without moving. Ji Zhe's gaze was fixated on the ocean of peace. Only then did he realize that he had neglected the ocean of peace. He frowned, then relaxed, feeling that his mind was in a mess. What is the black seawater? A type of energy? No energy can defeat the autumn laws so easily. Laws? Ji Zhe shook his head as well. The clash between laws would definitely not be so silent, unless there was a huge disparity between the two parties. A majestic and ancient bronze palace gradually surfaced from the water. The bronze palace's doors were tightly shut, with 4 black stars engraved on it, forming an irregular cross. On the 4 walls, the words, "Do not bless eternal peace," were engraved. 12 red ropes, one end was tied to the roof of the palace, while the other end was inserted deep into the ocean of peace. It was stretched taut. Inside the bronze palace, there seemed to be an endless number of black watermen, all of them surging out. The black watermen who came out did not say a word. They walked to Xian's side and stood there solemnly. Tang Tian felt that the bronze palace was familiar, as though he had seen it somewhere before. After a while, he smacked his head. Isn't this the Southern Cross Army's spirit hall? Qiu Tianqing's face was pale, but his aura was that of a god. But General Hua knew that Qiu Tianqing was truly risking his life. Even if they won, he and the Qiu offense army would be greatly injured. They are formed by the illusory soldiers from before. What goes around comes around. The power of the ocean of peace itself was extremely terrifying. As long as they activated the power of the ocean of peace, it would be enough. At such a crucial time, it was not a good sign for their side to suffer a loss. But at such a time, even if he was beaten to death, he would not make a move. He was not sure if Qiu Tianqing was rational, but the Macefield Trading's family was also extremely sinister. For some reason, he, who was not afraid of anything, felt an indescribable reverence and fear towards the Macefield Trading's family. Chi. Sacrifice? Qiu Tianqing bit the tip of his tongue. The taste of blood permeated his mouth, and the intense pain caused him to sober up. A trace of lingering fear surfaced in his heart. He had been through hundreds of battles, and knew that he had to be even more resolute at such a time. Even a trace of hesitation or fear would cause them to die a tragic death. It was a situation of survival in the midst of death, and life could only be obtained through death. His heart was still filled with doubts, but the phenomenon in the sky had scared his soul out of his body, causing his face to turn as white as paper. Ever since the start of the battle, it was the first time he had thoughts of retreating. Even the legendary phenomenon has appeared. What the hell is in front of me? The sky suddenly darkened, black clouds converged from all directions, the previously clear and boundless sky had turned into a dark night in the blink of an eye. Silver lightning surged through the thick layers of clouds, and the oppressive sound of thunder sounded out like a heavy drum in everyone's hearts. Qiu Tianqing knew that he had no path of retreat. He roared and spat out a mouthful of blood. When the blood sprayed onto the chains, it quickly seeped into the chains and disappeared. The light aura of the chains erupted, and the black aura that was spreading from the other end of the chains was stopped. General He felt that he did not understand. That's right, there were many things that he did not understand. When the last black water person walked out of the bronze palace, the palace doors closed and sank back into the ocean of peace. And the most miraculous thing was that deep in the ocean of death, where the death chi was the densest, there was an ocean eye that was nurturing an astonishing amount of life. When he received the undying sword, he gained enlightenment. The ocean of peace had completely fused with the 13 palaces and the remnant spirits of the armies, and that was why the ocean of peace was inside the undying sword. Rumble. Unfortunately, it is not the banner of knights, he muttered in his heart. If it was the banner of knights, it would be perfect. The banner of knights was their main goal, they could achieve their goal, and at the same time, they could whittle down the strength of the Qiu family, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. This is? Everyone's eyes flashed with suspicion. Qiu Tianqing's clear autumn lock had firmly controlled the situation, and everyone was waiting for Xian to use some shocking method to turn the tables. This young man truly has good foresight. Qiu Tianqing was chanting in the air. This was the ocean of peace that the Southern Cross Army had spent all their efforts to create, and after 10,000 years of nurturing, it had completely transformed. Why was his autumn hair so weak? They didn't have a physical body, but they would also completely dissipate. At that time, no trace would be left. They were a bunch of legends. More and more Blackwater people gathered around Xian. They lined up neatly and silently. At this moment, only Xian was left on the surface of the sea. All the illusory soldiers had been submerged by the seawater. Xian did not care about Autumn Frost, who had reappeared. He looked at the sea beneath his feet with a look of anticipation. He had another method, which was the ocean of peace. The black seawater originally only had death energy, and only the ocean eye had vitality. However, after 10,000 years of nourishment, those precious treasures had long been consumed by the Dead Sea. With the transformation of the Palace of Peace, the life and death chi in the ocean of peace were no longer as distinct as they were in the past, but were gradually merging into one. In the other cities of St. Continent, there were people flying into the sky, their faces filled with shock as they looked towards the direction of the Qiu Offense Institute. They could sense that the energy around them had become abnormal. Although they did not know what was happening, but the phenomenon in the sky was definitely something powerful. It was the gap of laws that could not be crossed. As expected, the autumn law chains met the seawater that contained the life and death laws, and were immediately corroded, because they did not know what the ocean of peace was. In his heart, he only felt excitement and anticipation. Regardless of what kind of scene it was, the undying sword was worthy of it. What method is this? The seawater was actually able to corrode the chains. General He was shocked. But even Tang Tian was dumbstruck. The ocean of peace that did not have any reaction in his hands was actually able to cause such a phenomenon in Xian's hands. It was truly too powerful. Ji Zhe was dumbstruck. What the hell is that black water? The enemy's formation seemed to be a perfect imitation of a law domain. The gold patterns on the gray chains were autumn laws, but in front of the black water, they were unable to resist at all. A loud sound came out from the depths of the ocean of peace. The surface of the sea suddenly started to churn violently, the winds howled, as though countless evil dragons were stirring up waves. Axen could guess everyone's expression, and a faint smile surfaced on his face. How can we guess it? Axen, who was standing on the surface of the sea, did not move. His eyes erupted with excitement, and he bellowed, "Come out!" If Axen was able to break out of Clear Autumn Lock, Qiu Tianqing and his army would definitely be heavily injured. And if Axen was unable to break out of Clear Autumn Lock, there would only be one result for him, and that was to die in the formation. Chapter 908. Bang. The entire battlefield was silent. Everyone was shocked by the attack just now. Melissa asked carefully, "Master, did you meet with some trouble?" Her heart continued to sink. Axion's entire body trembled, his face turned pale white, and he did not even dare to struggle. This dual violent lady is capable of anything. Dual violent lady Axen had secretly given Xiao Ran a nickname, meaning that she was a violent and explosive woman. At times, it is not a good thing to give a nickname too accurately. 8 moves, the 8 great killing techniques of the Southern Cross Army in the past. How many people still remember them? It was an unfamiliar face. Melissa had never seen him before, as the Hua family and Macefield Tradings did not have any interactions in the past. But Melissa was no longer the Amon of the past. The Hua family man was tall and straight, with an imposing appearance. One look and anyone could tell that he was not an ordinary disciple of the Hua family. He suddenly took a step in the air, and his figure suddenly soared by a few meters, and stood above the formation. Axen returned to the trading ship, and upon seeing Xiao Ran's sluggish face, he immediately became excited, and his nose pointed upwards. "Haha, are you shocked? Are you stunned? Are you starting to worship me? Oh my, I told you that I was also very fierce in the past. Come, let us have an exchange of flesh and soul." The Blackwater soldiers in front of him slowly sank into the ocean of peace. The seawater slowly submerged them, but they maintained their saluting posture and did not move, all the way until they were completely submerged. He muttered lightly, a look of reminiscence flashing past his eyes. How many people can remember those 4 sentences, and how many people can remember the meaning behind those 4 sentences? General Hua regained his vision. He stared at the black hole in the sky in shock. That is a crack formed from the shattering of space. His face twitched, his fingers trembled. Who exactly is he? How can he shatter space with one strike? He opened up his arms and placed them in front of his chest, forming a perfect circle. The black hole seemed to be connected to the void. It was bottomless, and a gloomy and cold aura floated out from the hole. The surroundings of the hole were covered with spiderweb-like black cracks. In the Honorable Marshall Continent, there were 5 top-grade prestigious families: the Croft family, Hua family, Chiu family, Mo family, and Vicari. The Hua family and the Chiu family were both top-notch families. They had just suffered a setback at the hands of the Chiu family, and now another top-notch family had come knocking on their door. How could they not be shocked? Axion's legs were flailing about in the air, with a hand grabbing onto his neck. Xiao Man spoke fiercely, "You forgot about the pain after the scar healed? But so what? He would still do the same, no matter how stupid he was. How great of a setback was it for these people to lose their composure like this? Tang Tian had seen Uncle Bing's technique of controlling aura, and was shocked at that time, but compared to Axen today, it paled in comparison. Tang Tian's reaction was the fastest, and he fled as soon as he could. Everyone looked at Axen with a little more respect. Ji Zhe's legs kept trembling. These days, he had hung out with Axen for a long time, mocking and ridiculing him. God, why did you have to make such a joke? Why is my heart beating so fast? Why am I shaking so much? Master Axen, can we start over? The leader was furious and created his own green-red cross scythe. Seems like it will definitely be a crushing defeat, Melissa thought. A painful defeat would usually leave a shadow in one's heart. But although she was worried, she still believed in Tang Tian and the rest's ability to recover. She was also encouraging herself. At such a time, She had to be even more resolute and not waver. As though they had a telepathic connection, Qiu Tianqing, who was in the sky, roared at the same time, "Kill!" Tang Tian thought that Qiu Tianqing had actually seen through their disguise, and their plans had all gone down the drain. Bang! Exen smashed onto the deck fiercely, countless of stars dancing in front of him. He laid on the ground in a daze. Seems like the script isn't right. Shouldn't the cows be pouncing on me with looks of worship? Then I will be buried. Oh my, the legendary feeling of suffocation. The dazzling silver light devoured everything, causing the entire world to be covered in white. No matter how good one's eyesight was, they were unable to see anything. Even their skin that was exposed to the air felt as though it was being pierced by needles. The terrifying shock wave wreaked havoc, causing General Hua, who was close to it, to be unable to react in time. As though he was smashed by an iron wall, he was flung out over 30 m before he stabilized himself. Can we talk things out? Xiao Man sneered. Hee, if you don't fight for 3 days, you will tear the tiles off the roof. If not for the fact that you did not embarrass us in front of the young master, I will make sure that you shrink back a bit. Xian maintained his salute and did not move. Xen shook his head. The Qiu offense army had it easy. If not for him reuniting with his comrades, he would not even bother to use it. Xen raised his head. The surging airflow caused his hair to become messy, but he did not blink at all. The stars in the formation below flew towards Xen. Melissa felt fear from the bottom of her heart. A bone-chilling cold enveloped her entire body. She was extremely clear on how strong Jizai and the rest were. But what truly made the old man decide to gamble was the unique aura that Jizai and the rest had. Tens of thousands of thick and solid chains intertwined together, covering the sky in Xian's eyes. The air trembled. Xen, who was lying down, could feel his body tensing up and was unable to escape. After experiencing the cruelest battles, he had never felt fear. He opened his eyes with all his might. Although he could not see anything, the dazzling silver light caused his face to turn white. He was still all right, although his blood was churning, but he was not injured. The soldiers under him were not as fortunate. They were scattered and wailing on the ground. That's right, to be able to meet everyone, I am truly fortunate. He knew that he was not fighting alone, and knew that everyone in the past had never forgotten the oath they made. In truth, he also knew that there was no meaning in struggling. It was as though the Southern Cross Army had already been destroyed, and even if they were to be rebuilt again, it would no longer be the army of the past. I can't dodge? Then let's meet force with force. His vision suddenly darkened, as a black figure that resembled a mountain rapidly enlarged in his eyes. All of the soldiers in the formation below had their fingers blossoming like flowers, and in their palms, a light aura flashed. The black ocean of peace was like a deep and unfathomable curtain of night, suddenly lighting up with light auras, as though the sky was filled with stars. Buzz, countless of light auras flew up from below and struck his body. His body did not tremble at all. It was as though he was lying on the surface of the ocean, as though his entire being was embedded in a bright halo. His entire body was covered in dazzling light auras. Xiao Man's originally sluggish face quickly turned red. Following that, a regiment of flames ignited in her eyes. The zanbato in her hand brought forth the sound of the wind. Bang! The thick blade accurately struck Xian's face like a fly swatter. Xian's mouth revealed a faint smile. He had an expression of enjoyment. It's a familiar feeling. The tens of thousands of chains that hung down from the clouds were like 10,000 gigantic pythons dancing. They hissed and pounced towards Xian. The tens of thousands of terrifying chains danced, covering the sky like empty tie pressing down, causing people to be unable to dodge, causing their hearts to be filled with despair. Countless white mist pervaded the air, the autumn frost scattered down like snow. The reunion of comrades after 10,000 years is a happy thing. Knowing that my former comrades are the same as me, doing stupid and meaningless things, makes me happy. That's us. We are like that, so stupid we are never different from others. The dazzling light auras illuminated Xian's face. He had a calm expression, as though he was reminiscing, sighing and reminiscing. Star Cannon, I never thought that after so many years, I would not be rusty at all. The opponent's autumn laws were unprecedentedly powerful, all the other laws in the surrounding space were pushed out by it. Tang Tian laid on the rattan chair, enjoying the fruits that Chie fed him, watching the pitiful Axen being ordered around by Xiao Man. Where was the elegance of a general? Thinking about Xian's heroic bearing that looked down on the world, and then looking at his current submissive state, all sorts of emotions converged into one sentence in Tang Tian's mind: Chie is still the best. Tang Tian did not expect her to ask such a question. He thought for a moment and said, "It's just a small problem." The once fierce, the once flamboyant, the once bloodied and fiery, had flown for over 10,000 years, stepping on the void. The spatial cracks gradually disappeared. Every spatial dimension had the ability to regenerate itself, and once a spatial dimension lost its ability to regenerate, it meant that the spatial dimension would gradually lose control and be close to destruction. Xian's attack had brought a huge shock to Tang Tian. Xian's gaze swept across his comrades. They were only left with a strand of obsession, and even though he had the ocean of pieces seawater to reconstruct their bodies, they still did not have any memories or intelligence. If not for the ocean of pieces seawater containing life and death, as well as their aura, they would not even be able to reconstruct their bodies. Xian's roar was like an explosion of thunder. A surging pillar of light surged out from the rings on his arms. Melissa's heart jumped. She knew that in the eyes of her master, no matter how big a problem was, it was just a small problem, and her heart immediately jumped to her throat. Xian was already satisfied. Ji Zhe and the rest were not as lucky as Tang Tian, and were even more affected by the explosion. All of them were in a sorry state. Their hair was disheveled, but luckily they were strong, although they looked to be in a sorry state, but no one was injured. Tang Tian's heart was filled with sympathy, and decided to find a chance to ridicule Uncle Bing when they return. Uncle Bing is truly pitiful. The Hua family is here. For such a grand occasion, only by winning would they not let it down. Axen flew out like a sandbag. Bang bang bang, he was like a meatball bouncing around inside the trading ship. Melissa ordered Wiley to quickly send the news to Tang Tian, and at the same time, she decided to take the initiative to meet the Hua family. Of course, it was just a shock in terms of power, as Tang Tian knew that such a technique was not suitable for him. Star Cannon's essence was actually a type of control aura. It was a technique unique to military generals, and others could not learn it. The white light had not dissipated, and Tang Tian could not see clearly. His awakened god armor that was effective every time was not of much use at the moment. He thought that the laws in the region were in chaos. Tang Tian had never seen such a chaotic scene before, and he was even worried that the space would collapse. Regardless, she was the owner of Macefield Tradings, and there was no reason for her to retreat. The smile on Xian's face suddenly disappeared. A sharp and ferocious aura suddenly erupted from his body, as though an ancient dragon had awoken from its slumber. A blazing light pillar struck the chains that were descending from the sky. What was even funnier was that the commander did not learn a technique that no one had thought of: cross scythe. Out of the 8 major killing techniques, the cross scythe was publicly acknowledged to be the easiest killing technique, and was also the killing technique with the most number of people learning it. But for some reason, the commander was unable to learn it. The battlefield is eternal, we will forever fight side by side. Ji Zhe felt that his life was filled with darkness, and had already left a shadow in his heart. Young Miss Melissa is truly a natural beauty. I am Hua Li Rua. I greet young Miss Melissa. The red-caped man bowed politely. Hua Li Rua. But when she found Ji Zhe, she saw that Ji Zhe's soul had left his body. His gaze was in a daze, and the unease in her heart became even stronger. She then looked for the others, only to realize that all of them were the same. She stood in the courtyard for a long time, but no one bothered about her. She greeted a few of them, but they were all extremely slow. Xian's face was calm. He had a smile on his face, as though he was narrating an extremely simple matter. We all have the same flames flowing in our veins, and the same beliefs are imprinted in our souls. Xian straightened his neck, and used all his strength to speak. Oily hair. Xian's face was filled with fear as he looked at the Zanbato in Xiaoman's other hand, who was waving it below him. Star cannon. But what did I see on their faces today? After 10,000 years of tempering, they have never given up. Seems like Xian definitely tortured Uncle Bing like a dog in the past. Melissa's mouth was bitter. He was the most famous genius of the Hua family, but he was even more famous for his explosive temper. As long as the other party was unhappy, he would destroy the branch in a matter of minutes. When the last ripple dissipated, the ocean of peace regained its calmness. The pitch-black ocean of peace was visibly fading until it disappeared, and a bronze sword landed in Xian's hands. The bronze sword's blade became black and shiny, like a pool of black water. The original cracks seemed to have sunk into the sword's blade, and could be faintly seen. But the might of this move is truly terrifying. He was hard-working, tenacious, courageous and fearless, decisive in his actions, and never sloppy. It was these precious qualities that made the old man participate in the gamble that concerned the fate of the family. This humble one is Melissa. I greet young noble. Melissa bowed. She purposely put on a weak look to prevent the other party from being too vile. After all, men would usually be more courteous to women. As expected of generals, they are all perverts. With that, he retracted the smile on his face, and with a stern expression, he bowed to the soldiers in front of him. Melissa's heart trembled. Hua family. The bright light auras floating around his body suddenly converged towards the center of his arms, converging into an even brighter light spot. The light spot in the center of his arms became brighter, and in a moment, it became so bright that it could not be seen with the naked eye. Xian's figure was completely enveloped by the dazzling light aura, and could not be distinguished. The young man, the general, the Xian, had awoken at that moment. If not for him personally witnessing it, he would never believe that there was such a terrifying attack in the world. Melissa had absolute trust in her grandfather's judgment, and the conclusion that she had secretly observed along the way had further confirmed it. In her heart, all of them had steel-like willpower and an unafraid heart. Xian was able to be promoted to the rank of general and become the second in command of the entire army. Other than his outstanding foresight and astonishing talent, the most important reason was that he was the only member who had mastered the 8 major killing techniques. Even the commander was only able to master 7 of them. When Tang Tian and the rest returned to Mace Fields trading in Snow City, Melissa was startled for a moment. Why are they back so quickly? According to Tang Tian's plan, they were prepared to go all out and muddy the waters. The light aura in front of him dimmed and dissipated, and his vision returned to normal. The gigantic python-like chains that filled the sky had disappeared. The Qiu offense army with the 3 blood and 3 withering Qiu offense army had disappeared, and where they stood, a black hole floated in the air. What responded to him was a uniform military salute. The spirit of the soldier does not dissipate. The battlefield is eternal. The cross in my heart, the stars do not fall. Walking to the front hall, a man in a fiery red cape stood in the center of the hall. Thinking about the past, Xian could not help but smile, and as he smiled, his face revealed a bit of killing intent. That's right, it's such a good day. How can I use an ordinary technique to end it? I've lost my soul. In the past, this technique was only used to kill nameless people. Thinking about it, there is nothing strange about it. That is the Qiu family, and it is not surprising for us to lose to them. Seems like I have to find some time to console them. Losing to the Qiu family is nothing to be ashamed of, and there is no need to be depressed. Suddenly, Uncle Wiley walked in with an ugly expression. Xian opened up his arms, as though he was welcoming the tens of thousands of chains, and his body fell backwards. After 10,000 years, we have finally met again. Melissa felt as though she was struck by lightning, her eyes darkened, and she almost fell to the ground. Too terrifying. But seeing that Tang Tian did not have the intention to speak, she could only leave. It was not good to ask Tang Tian, so she decided to ask Jizai and the rest what had happened. On the way back to Macefield Tradings, Xian was dejected the entire time, and did not have the attitude of a victor. Xen floated to the front of the formation, looking at the stiff, expressionless faces. He felt warmth in his heart. They stood there without moving, all of their faces facing him. Their gazes looked towards the sky. Their eyes that had experienced the vicissitudes of life were as calm as water, without a single ripple, like a mirror reflecting the clouds and chains in the sky. Ever since Tang Tian left, Melissa had been on tenterhooks. The entire Macefield Trading's family had placed their bets on Tang Tian, and if Tang Tian lost, the Macefield Trading's family would fall into an abyss of eternal damnation. Law domain. The entire region was now a true law domain. In this space, they had been locked down, and any attempts to dodge would be futile. Melissa clenched his teeth and walked towards the hall. They could not see anything. Their faces were filled with fear, and their hearts were filled with fear. They had never seen such a violent attack before. After 10,000 years, even if all of you are left with is a strand of obsession, I am willing to do so. Melissa was filled with despair. But the shockwave caused his entire body to go numb. He was overwhelmed with shock. He never expected the might of the attack to be so terrifying. But thinking about it, Xen was a general, and could not help but feel relieved. They came with ill intentions. With a sharp gaze, Xen bellowed, "Kill!" You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.